friends. It's almost midnight, and you've found your way to the Pikecast. Come along as we careen through the catalog of the most formative horror writer of our young adult days, Christopher Pike. From adult perspectives, we'll revisit these YA books our parents probably would never have let us read had they known what lie inside. We tackle one book per episode in a freewheeling and unbiased chat. So grab your battered paperback, pull the flashlight from the kitchen drawer, climb under your bed covers, and devour a good book with us. Greetings, fellow Pikers, and welcome to the Pikecast. I'm Cooper Beckett, and I'm thrilled to be joined by my lovely co-hosts.
Hello, I'm Cassie.
Hi, I'm Becca.
Today, we are digging into Christopher Pike's first adult book, 1992's The Season of Passage. And we're going to be dissecting it in great detail, spoiling each and every plot twist, so consider yourself warned. If you're enjoying the Pikecast, please leave us a review on the podcast service of your choice. So now let's welcome our guest Piker this week, freelance writer, mostly covering entertainment, pop culture, women's health, and relationships, Danielle Sepulveris. Delighted to have you join us, Danielle.
I am so beyond excited to be here. I don't even have the words, honestly, to describe it. I'm so happy. I already love all of you.
Oh, I love you too.
Well, you were one of the most enthusiastic reactions ever on Twitter, so I could not help but invite you on the show, honestly.
I would have probably stood outside all your houses with like a boombox and like all the Christopher Pike books and been like, please let me on your podcast.
Oh man, if I had known that I was going to get the say anything treatment, I might have waited a little longer just to,
No, not even just you, Cooper. It's all of us. So she
all of us.
3
Oh,
trips.
okay. Yeah. Because we are in 3 different, very different parts of the country here.
Nothing but respect for that determination.
I've got miles. I've got miles here.
Excellent. And with the pandemic, you probably haven't taken a good cross-country road trip.
It's true. I haven't.
Well, we have a lot of questions. We don't have a lot of questions. We have some questions that we ask each and every one of our guests. I don't remember who's reading the question.
Me.
Yes. Give us questions, Cass.
Okay. How did you discover Pike?
Okay. How did I discover Pike? I was thinking about this because, I listen to your podcast and I hear you ask your guests this question. And
so you had prep time.
Yeah. So I was thinking because it's one of those things where you've read so many of the books and the author's been in your life for so long that you're like, when did this begin? But I actually think it was like middle school. One of the popular girls in my class who wasn't even ever like usually that nice to me had Christopher Pike books and was always lending them out to people and was like, Christopher Pike is so good. And so
she was the hookup. She was the Alexa Close of your school.
Yeah, she was the sugar sister.
Yeah.
So I borrowed one and I actually don't remember what was the first one I read. It might have been The Midnight Club. I'm not sure. But I just remember as soon as I read one, I was like, oh yeah, no, like this is what I want to be reading. And so every birthday I would always ask, and holiday where you could get gifts, I would be like, I want a gift certificate to Walden Books because that was when Walden Books existed. Shout out to Walden Books. Oh yeah. And I would go and pick out as many Christopher Pike novels as I could fit on the gift card that I would get for my birthday. And because if I asked for the actual books, like my dad is the kind of person because he did the gift shopping in our family, like if you asked him to get a certain kind of cereal at the store, he'd get you like the knockoff store brand wasn't quite the same.
So you'd wind up with R.L. Stein.
Yes, or like something that had like similar font on the cover as a Christopher Pike book, but like not an actual Christopher Pike book because you'd be like, whatever, it looked just like it. I don't know. So I just asked for gift certificates so that I could pick them out myself.
Makes sense.
and I just became this like voracious reader. And also I didn't kind of like want them to know what some of the content of the books were, because I had gotten in trouble twice at school for reading books beyond what is it, quote unquote, beyond my comprehension level. In third grade and fourth grade. I mean, I was reading Christopher Pike later than that, more like I would say like fifth and sixth was when I was first reading him. But like in third and fourth grade, we had to have a meeting with the principal of my teachers. I was reading some book. It was like called, maybe it was called 15, not the Judy Blume book, but it was like in the vein of that book where it's about like teenagers dating. And I like, even to this day, I don't remember anything really bad being in it. I think they kissed, and that was literally it. And my teacher like picked it up and read the back of it and took it away and then like called my parents. And then there was this whole meeting, and because we'd had the book fair. I, picked, your parents give you some cash in an envelope and you pick out books at the book fair, and they made me return the book and pick out something more age appropriate. And they were like giving me all these, they gave me all these like options. They were like, oh, here's like a story about a girl and her dog, like roaming around the country. And I'm like, this sounds boring as shit. I want this book. And then
read the boxcar, children. It'll be just fine.
But it was worse in fourth grade. We had like a middle school newspaper, and that I used to do book reviews for it, and I submitted a book review for Catcher in the Rye, and I got in trouble for reading Catcher in the Rye when I was 9, and they were like, we're not running this review.
So you were the subversive child.
Yes. I was a little bit advanced in my reading, and but also like so much stuff went over my head that it wasn't like I was internalizing it. Like, even in fifth and sixth grade, I wasn't reading Christopher Pike being like, I want to go like, hook up with guys. I was just like fascinated by what I was reading more than I was like wanting to emulate it. So but I just figured it was safer for everyone if no one knew the content of the books I was reading anymore.
Well, I think that's the thing. They're always so worried that that we're going to go out and do what's in the books. But really, it's just we're getting this little vicarious thrill from. They talked about a penis. Oh my god!
Oh my god! These like in Whisper of Death. Oh my god! Rocks and Pepper had sex in the hay in the barn.
Right. Almost impaled on. He did get impaled.
Yes.
On
that was the foreshadowing.
In Fake World,
yes.
right?
Yep.
So let's move on to the next guest question.
What is the thing that keeps Christopher Pike on your mind after all these years?
Oh God, such a good question. I think he just incorporated all the things I wanted to read at that time. It was like teens having adventures and relationships, and it was, and also there's a lot of fun supernatural weird stuff, and it was just like sort of this combination, and I don't know, like the endings were so interesting because there wasn't really, I don't know, like, are there any with happy endings? Not really.
They're very rare.
They're very rare.
And when they have them, they're really like eye rolling because it's like a guy and a girl flirting at the end who you don't even want to get together, but they're like, haha, let's drive off and do it. And you're like, oh
my. That's extremely accurate. It was just like, I don't know, things like that were just beyond my imagination at the time. And he just sort of, I don't know, felt like opened up this world. And I think he's definitely like a reason that I wanted to try to write like cool YA stories, and I just like, I became like so interested in how his mind must work to like come up with these ideas. That's like one of the things I like, one of the reasons he's always on my mind is because certain things today remind me of him. Like when Gone Girl came out, I was like, this is Fall into Darkness. Like this is literally Fall into Darkness. Like that like,
I never put that together.
Yeah.
It really is very similar story.
It's very similar stories. Like Anne totally planned out the whole thing. And I mean, although in Gone Girl, obviously she was initially planning on killing herself, but Anne was never planning on dying. She was just planning on letting Sharon take the fall for her death. But then there were all these other obviously factors at play. But when I first read Gone Girl, I loved Gone Girl, but as like something was bothering me, and I'm like, why does something about this feels like familiar? I'm like, oh my god, this is like very, very close to a Christopher Pike novel. Mm-hmm. And I think like other things remind me of his stuff too. But I think that was the most blatant one. Like, not that I feel like Gone Girl's a ripoff of it, but like that was, I think, the most blatant one that reminded me of a Christopher Pike novel. Yeah. But there's like pieces, if you like, because last year I was having a really hard time focusing during COVID and being home, every hour of the day. And I wanted to read new books, but because I couldn't focus, I decided to reread stuff that I loved. And I started with a bunch of Christopher Pike books, including Season of Passage. And that was sort of what got me into just sitting down to read again. And as I was reading so many of them, I'm like, God, there's so many just pieces of these books that remind me of modern plots or like weird supernatural things that I've seen or action scenes. And that was when I was thinking, it's so weird that none of these have been made into anything yet. And then of course, like all of a sudden there's so many of them.
The resurgence happened.
The resurgence it has come into being like we all wished for.
Well, I think so many writers, now that like my age is early 40s to mid 40s. So many of the writers there did grow up reading Christopher Pike, and clearly Flanagan is exactly in that age range too. And he has the clout to finally say, hey, why is nobody making Christopher Pike movies?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
So it's really a great time for fans of this, who've been fans since these books were coming out, to get adaptations.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited about the adaptations.
Yeah.
I think it's really cool too, because it's so good for us, like who grew up reading them, but it's also really cool because from the other end, like people like Becca, who before the podcast, like had never read or really like heard very much about him except for like from a few people that they knew. Mm-hmm. Now they're going to get to watch these adaptations, and then they go back and there's like this whole list of books that they can read that are like have cool covers and like cool fonts and stuff. And I am a little bit worried that they're going to do a re-release after the adaptations and make worse covers, because I really like these original covers so much. I mean,
I'm heartened that the logo for the Midnight Club is the Christopher Pike font.
Yes. I'm very excited.
So maybe they're going to lean hard, like Fear Street. Maybe they'll lean hard into the nostalgia.
I really hope so. And exactly like Fear Street, there are so many people that have been like, I never read an R.L. Stine book. I've never read Fear Street, but they're loving the movie. So I think that's such a cool like way to bring in new fans and a new audience.
Very much so.
So what are your then, like if you had to narrow it down, what would you say are your favorite Pike books?
My favorite, I would say probably number one is Whisper of Death.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah, I think about it all the time. And I know we're going to talk about, problematic things that as we reread them and we're like, oh,
you mean the abortion book is not problematic? Is problematic?
It took me so many years to realize it's sort of like a cautionary tale about abortion.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
At the time, it like never occurred to me that's what was happening.
You may bleed out and die. Abortion's not safe at all, right?
And then you don't even recognize like your witch ex-girlfriend who was also pregnant before Roxanne.
Soap baby.
Soap baby.
Soap baby. Soap baby. So weird. Yeah. There's so many weird details in it that I just think of so many years later. Somebody tweeted once that they think about the because how they would read all the short stories about each other in Betty Sue's Diary, and there was a story about Holt Skater and him walking on the wire until it got too narrow and two bloody pieces and that whole thing. And this woman had tweeted, she's like, God, I think about that weird short story in that book all the time. And I'm like, I think about that weird short story all the time.
Honestly, that was the most memorable thing I ever read in Christopher Pike. That was the thing that kept him in my head, I think, right there.
Oh, and it was, cause it was Stan who said, Betty Sue has something very special planned for Holt because he raped her. And that's why, like, going back and reading it feels so awkward because you're supposed to like be mad at Betty Sue for being this witch and like killing everybody, but you're like, I don't know, some of these people kind of deserve.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, there's just like that book has always stuck out in my head. There's just so many moments of it. And maybe because too, like at the center of it is just like a girl who fell in love with a boy and then the world fell apart. And so even though everything else about it is supernatural and weird and fantastical, the core story is just a girl who fell in love with a boy and then, quote unquote, as they say on the back of the cover, they got in trouble or they had a teenage couple with some problems that they have to take care of. And
you never know. That happens. Yeah,
it happens. So yeah, I would say that's probably number one, and then a very close number two is the Remember Me trilogy.
Well, we just actually confirmed this weekend with Grady Hendrix. He is rejoining us for Remember Me too. He wants to complete the trilogy with us.
Nice.
So excited.
Yeah,
I'm excited to listen.
Very much fun. Well, let's move into Magic Fire. And Becca, I believe you have the back of the book this week.
Dr. Lauren Wagner was a celebrity. She was involved with the most exciting adventure mankind had ever undertaken. The whole world admired and respected her. But Lauren knew fear. Inside, voices entreating her to love them. Outside, the mystery of the missing group that had gone before her, the dead group. But were they simply dead, or something else? A terrifying novel of horror, and surprisingly of salvation, from one of America's best-selling writers, a novel you won't forget, The Season of Passage. Dun dun dun.
It's really selling that novel part. You know?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I guess it's because it is his first adult novel.
Mm-hmm.
So they did have to, and I mean, it's still early. This is 1992, so Pike has had a little time to get going, but, you know, the mainstream audiences may not be aware of him. The artwork on this, I have the one where it's the pale girl with blood on her lips and a moon.
I think that's the one I have.
Oh, it's Mars.
It's Mars.
I mean, it is a moon because it's over some trees and there's a lake. Yeah. But I get it. It's red, so it's Mars.
Okay, I think I got the same one too.
While we're talking about the cover, I do need to shout out Kirkus Reviews, quote, riveting, comma, a back prickler.
Yeah.
What does
Never
that
have
mean?
I heard that. Never. I imagine it's like you'll get shivers up your spine.
Oh, like
something
spine
like
tingling.
Yeah, spine tingling. Back prickler and spine tingle are maybe the same thing, but they're not the same thing.
I'm going to use that.
You're going to use that back prickler?
How back prickling, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I love it.
That might have been a big thesaurus day for that.
Yeah. Maybe whoever was writing the reviews, he's like, fuck, I already said spine tingling this day. Like, damn.
How many times, or his editor's like, you're not saying fucking spine tingling again. You said it on the last 6 books. Just say something else. Back prickling. Fine, whatever. I don't care.
Back prickling. No, it's so fun. I always make fun of, because I love reading book reviews, even though I make fun of them, but I make fun of them with love in my heart. Like when someone writes their debut novel or something, and then all these authors are like, it's so incisive and sharp. And I'm like, that's the only thing we can think of to say. It's like, instead of I love it, it's very incisive and very sharp.
Well, you know, it's hard to come up with a pull quote.
It is. Yeah. Which, that's why, like I say, I mock them like lovingly because I don't know that I could do better.
Okay. So the big question, do these accurately capture what's inside?
I don't really think so.
I think the cover does, because it's the girl. And then there's Mars, and they're on the forest in Wyoming, and the lake.
I would argue, going into this book, just having seen the cover, because I don't read the back before, I did not expect as much space.
It doesn't seem like a space book based on.
Honestly, it looks like you could put that cover on Witch, and it'd be the exact same thing.
Oh, I loved Witch.
Oh my
Witch is-
god, they don't really mention space on the back.
Not at
do
all.
they?
I did
Holy
not,
shit.
because this is sci-fi
She's a
horror.
celebrity,
Yeah.
This
they
is
say.
fucking Event Horizon.
Yeah. You know what I find weird about it? Like, not just the back cover, but the whole book, is that they literally, actually, maybe literally is not the right word, but don't they almost never use the word vampire?
They also don't they really, really try to, it's funny.
Toward the end they do, once they start
Right.
figuring it
Yes,
out.
it's towards the end, but like they do all these things aside from say like, oh, they need to be invited in.
Yeah.
They, they drink blood and it changes you and that kind of thing. But I feel like the first time I read it, I kept like questioning, are they vampires? Is this a vampire book? It's vampires, but they're not saying vampires. Like, would they? And then, I think you are right. They do say it much later in the end, but like they do everything possible to not use the word vampire.
And then they go with the most hoary cliches of vampire.
Yes, they
Like
do.
I'm going to put my card on the table. I really like this book,
Me too.
but the fact that a crucifix has anything to do with this ancient pre-Jesus vampire, it's
I think it's supposed to be a symbol. It's because of her symbol of her faith and her faith to that first original woman. Like that was there, that sacrificed, and her husband who both sacrificed themselves. So it's supposed to be the symbol because they even say like, they even make fun of it a little bit in there. And they're like, what are we supposed to say? Something about Jesus or something like that at some point. And then, but it's just the symbol itself because they don't even care about the words.
Right.
I get, okay, I'll give you that.
But I'm not disagreeing with you that I think it's funny that they're having Mars vampires and they're like, hold on, here's my crucifix. Like,
Yeah, right.
no, I'm with you. But I do think it fits because I think he just put a twist on a lot of like the cheaper, more like things that we mock in vampire legends and stories and stuff, which I think that's probably why I like it so much.
And
also,
honestly, I like the research into it because like the thing about the white roses, I had thought I made that up at some point because I never heard it in any vampire lore. And I feel like it was in Fright Night 2.
Oh.
But I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because it's been ages since I've seen that.
Right.
But I really like a good vampire story. And this is a good, weird vampire story.
It is.
But that's plot discussion, so we gotta wait.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Midnight Club and talk about our characters.
Yes.
Starting with Dr. Lauren Wagner, who's 32, black hair, on a pale-skinned Caucasian, which is a funny way of introducing her here. She's described specifically based on her sister. She had Jennifer's great mouth, wide and full of white teeth. She came close to having the little girl's radiant smile, which was saying a lot, yet otherwise the two did not look alike. Lauren was cute. Jennifer was beautiful. So poor Lauren, from the beginning, is in her little sister's shadow.
Which they have a very big age gap.
They do, yeah. She's 32 and Jennifer is 14?
13.
Yeah.
13?
Yeah.
Which surprised me because Jennifer feels much older.
Yes.
And Lauren Wagner feels like an 18-year-old Pike protagonist,
yes,
honestly.
That's exactly right. Jennifer seems like she's at least like 20 something. And
Yes.
Lauren feels like she's barely 20. And it's so bizarre. Like that's one of the things when I reread it, I'm like, God, Dr. Lauren Wagner, no less.
Dr.
Like,
Lauren Wagner, yeah.
she feels like and she feels like she's not a very good doctor.
So she's 32.
Yes.
She's ostensibly our protagonist, but the book does make this very interesting choice to take her off the board.
Yeah.
As a protagonist, I want to maybe 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting that.
Me neither.
Either. There's a lot of twists and turns here that I was not expecting. But what do we think of Lauren as a protagonist?
I think but I think what you just said with taking her out too, that was very similar to Monster, like how they do it with Angela.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah,
true.
and so reading that this time, I was like, oh, I didn't notice this when I was younger, but I love this book and I love Monster, and I was like,
and
oh, the same
Monsters
girl.
later.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And oh man, you guys know how much I love space vampires.
And
you know?
Monster is space vampires.
Yes,
oh my God.
There's so much in common between that planet in that one and this one. It's like that one is like a small teen novel fanfic of this book, and I'm so pleased. I just had to. I don't know where that would fit in our show, but I just had to get it out.
That
is very
true. That is very true.
That's a really.
But Lauren reminds me of her a lot, of the girl from Monster. Like, and I know that's because that's how Pike writes his protagonists, who are girls. They're kind of very similar.
Yeah.
But she felt like her. Like, she was kind of like feisty and smart, but also like made a couple of choices where I was like, girl, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
Also a little bit moony.
Yeah.
A little
What's
bit moony, like, oh, my boyfriend. That's moony. Like, just overly, like, that was her less doctoral stuff, was when she got into, oh, I have these relationships here, and it's not bad. It's just more teen than adult, I feel.
Yeah. They also seem to like set it up really early on that her and Terry aren't meant to work, and she's supposed to hook up with what's his name?
Gary?
Gary, yes.
Gary, our typical Pike, Lothario kind of goofy,
yes,
but very inappropriate character.
I have a confession to make.
Go ahead.
Sure.
Those might be my favorite characters in these books, besides
Gary?
like the bad bitches. Yeah.
Oh, Lauren, you mean?
No. I'm saying.
No,
I'm saying,
she means
like,
Gary.
Yeah, I mean like the weird, like inappropriate man.
Oh,
character.
yes.
Well, I know we'll talk about it when we get to Gary, but I'll just say, and obviously we'll expand on it, but Gary's little side subplot with the sisters is the weirdest fucking thing.
Oh my God.
Lorraine.
Well, I spent the entire, let's move to Gary, because that's worth talking about. I spent the entire time waiting for that to be important.
It was just so weird. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
It's just he really likes this girl, Kathy, that he met literally once.
Yes.
And like, most of the time he's interacted with her, it's her crazy sister.
Lorraine was insane.
Yeah.
Oh, hell.
Yeah.
So
Honestly,
weird.
Lorraine had sugar sister energy, though.
Oh my God,
yeah.
fat.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But no,
I mean, did I misread this, or is he literally telling a story where he comes home with Kathy? Kathy goes into the garage to see if Lorraine is there. Lorraine traps Kathy in the garage and rejoins him.
Yeah,
I think that's what happened.
That is what happened.
You definitely got it right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're like hooking up and then he realizes it's not. Yeah. No, it's
good God.
And like you said, it feels like that's going to be important later.
Yeah.
And so I like the first time I read it, I remember thinking, like when you realize that they've changed in space and they're still coming back and they're going to be on Earth as vampires. I was like, oh man, like the one sister's going to know, like
right.
the way that he was able to figure out that like it wasn't the other sister, one of them is going to notice that he's not himself somehow.
Yeah, I thought he was
going
to kill Lorraine, and that would be the catalyst.
Yeah,
we would know then.
Right.
I thought he visited them and changed her because her sister comes in and she's acting weird and stuff. And then later they're like, he couldn't actually change him. Like he couldn't change anybody. So I was like, wait, what happened to Lorraine? Why was she
Lorraine is just weird.
Yeah.
And she's being a jerk for no reason.
And then, but Gary gets changed back, right? Because he didn't make the choice to become a vampire.
He doesn't get changed back. He's just not a powerful vampire.
And they're going to find him and take care of him.
That's right. That's what it is. Okay.
But she claws her sister and cuts her lip open, she even says.
Yeah, she did. Yeah.
Just for the hell of it.
I know.
She's not a vampire.
She's crazy.
So weird. It doesn't make any sense. I don't.
Literally, Lorraine and Kathy are living their own Christopher Pike novel.
Yeah, they are.
Oh,
it has nothing to do with the rest of this stuff.
We need a spinoff.
Yes. Whatever happened to Lorraine and Kathy? The people want to know.
Well, I do have to throw some major Gary Wheeler description here. He was ridiculously handsome in a boyish way and was incredibly strong. Lauren had seen him bench press 300 pounds. Are you impressed, ladies?
Yes.
Oh.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't know what that means really.
I don't know enough to be impressed.
Seems like
Sorry.
He was 6'2", 180 pounds of muscle. He did not own a comb. Okay, I don't know much about the military, but you own a comb.
You own a comb.
In the military.
You're supposed to be very like conservative.
Yes,
looking, like
yeah. But apparently his brown hair did not know what a comb was.
uh-huh.
He had nice eyes, fresh and blue, with a little hazel mixed in to honor his Irish mother, as though he made the choice. And this is great. We really meet him when he's reading his fan mail, which often includes risque females out there in good old America enclosing nude photos of themselves.
Oh God.
Which is our second reference to fan mail with naked people, which means Pike gets fan mail with naked women in it.
But this guy puts them up on his wall.
Yes. Major Gary Wheeler is not ashamed at all. But no, he's an interesting character because he does frequently cross that appropriate line, like to the problematic point. Like here I have, for no apparent reason, she was after all insulting him. He grabbed her and kissed her hard on the lips. Then he pulled back, grinning. "You love me," he said. "Admit it, bastard." She tried to slap him.
I would have hit him so hard. I wouldn't have missed.
Yeah.
I would have been throwing things at his head so fast.
I believe they were in free fall. I think they were in Zero Gravity.
Yeah.
How dare?
So
Yeah.
How
to
dare.
backtrack what I said,
It's okay.
I do still find that type of character entertaining, but I do not condone his actions. Okay.
Okay,
Right.
well, that's fair.
Let's
That's
make
fair.
that clear. I just like to laugh. Okay.
Don't worry, you're okay.
I don't condone bad behavior.
Let's move on to Jennifer Wagner, the cipher of the book.
Our princess.
Yes, the princess. Jennifer was an exceptional beauty, one of those children who could turn a dozen heads in a crowded mall. Creepy.
Creepy.
The whole thing is creepy.
Yeah, her features showed an interesting play of contradictory genes. They were clearly defined, yet also delicate, waif-like. She spent many hours outdoors, and as a result, always had a decent tan, which went well with her blue eyes. The latter possessed a cerulean clarity that was seldom found except in newborn babies. But it was her hair that was her crowning glory, long and curly, naturally blonde to the point of looking bleached. On sunny days, it swirled around her sleek shoulders like a protective aura. To look at Jennifer was to see something beautiful. It was as simple as that.
I'm so
Her figure was-
uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
I'm like throwing up in my mouth every time one of the men in this book are describing that girl. Like it's
There's hardly any description of Lauren from Terry.
Yeah.
it's so
But
creepy.
he talks endlessly about Princess.
About how beautiful
Jennifer.
she is,
Yeah.
yeah, and calling her like princess and stuff. Dude,
Mhm.
you're so creepy. There's like one point where he's like, "I wanted to take her into my arms," and like, what the?
Yeah,
what?
Yeah.
it's
Like,
creepy.
Yeah.
I get that they're supposed to like she's supposed to be like the goddess, so she's like
Mhm.
supposed to be this like amazing, incredibly beautiful being.
Mhm.
Why did you make her 13?
I hate it.
Right.
There's no
She's
reason for her
13.
to be
It
13.
Yeah.
makes no
She
sense.
was older, and it would be less creepy if she were
Yeah.
older. So
I
it's
feel like
fine.
even if she was 13, like there's other ways to describe her beauty than being a
Oh yeah.
creep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No.
I've never
sure.
seen a child that I've been so taken by their beauty. I'm like, that's a
Right.
cute kid, or that's an ugly kid. Like, period. Like, that's a fucking
Damn.
child.
It's
I mean, look, okay, just sometimes you see a kid that you're just like,
And they
you
look
know
like
what I mean?
aliens.
yeah.
Yeah.
They just look a little like weird. Like they've got
No.
like you're like, what do their parents look like? You know, like that's
Oh
all
my
I mean by that. I don't mean it in a mean way because
You don't
'cause
mean that in a mean way?
No, Cooper, help me.
I
What's the nice way to put it?
I mean, Cassie, honestly,
Have you look? Okay, Becca.
backed
Sometimes
myself into a bad corner here because I'm
Sometimes
just
there are
thinking of
celebrities and models who are gorgeous, and then they have a baby, and you're like, that baby doesn't look like either of these parents. That's all I meant. Does it look like his parents or not? That's all I meant. Does it look like it's a family, or does it look like it belongs
this
to
is-
another family?
This is what I'm hearing, okay? That These models and musicians and actresses are so pretty. How could they make such an ugly child? Is that what you're saying?
Surely it came from another family.
Surely it came from one of us ugly folk.
Yeah.
That must be my baby out there. Hang on, let me get that thing back in here.
Some flyover country folk.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Okay, well, let's move on to Terry.
Terry seems like he's 50.
He does.
Terry's gross.
I mean, he's a drunk.
He's a drunk, and he just
He's a
seems
weird
so much
old drunk.
older. Like,
His sandy hair was thinning, and he needed to gain 20 pounds to reach normal weight.
yeah.
Few women would have said Terry was handsome.
I don't get it.
I mean,
Like,
that's the male romantic lead we're introducing with
what
this.
the hell?
And if you want us to be standing Major Gary Wheeler, maybe Terry's not important.
right.
Maybe we don't even, I mean, I don't need to rewrite this one because this one's pretty damn solid. But I tell you, if I'm Mike Flanagan writing this script, I'm changing a bunch of characters around. I'm combining and I'm changing.
Because otherwise, at this point, it sounds like Jennifer is like Florence Pugh, but but made to look younger, and like Lauren Wagner is, oh God, I don't know, like 30 something, and like Terry's like Paul Giamatti. Like that's
Honestly, I love that casting.
that's what it feels like, and it's
honestly, I sort of want to watch that now. If that was the casting, like I would be skeptical, but I'd be here for it.
Yeah. I think Lauren could be the woman who played Wendy Torrance in Dr. Sleep.
Okay, yeah.
Alex Esso.
I could see that.
But you know, if they're going to really try to make a big movie out of this, then why don't we go with Rose the Hat, who's I'm thinking of all the Flanagan characters.
Was that the same movie?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that movie.
Oh, you still haven't seen Dr. Sleep? Oh
No.
my God, you need to watch it. Rebecca Ferguson.
That's
Yeah. She'd be very good as Doctor. See, I see you put her as Dr. Lauren Wagner, and then you get Anna Taylor-Joy as Jennifer, because Anna Taylor-Joy is gorgeous but looks
young.
Ethereal.
Yeah,
looks
She's so tall,
non-human.
though.
Yeah.
She's like very tall.
So, I mean,
there's no way she's gonna look 13.
No, fuck 13.
Yeah.
No, this girl is
okay.
18, 19. There is
then
no
I hear,
reason whatsoever to keep Jennifer Wagner at 13.
No.
None at all.
Fair.
I think
I
they could
agree
even
with
make
you.
her in her 20s, honestly. If they're going to keep, they should make them like
Why
more
aren't
than
they
like
just closer in age?
Yeah, they should
Yeah,
just be like 6 or 7 years apart.
Because the
tops.
parents died in a car accident, so it doesn't even make sense that they were so spread out.
Yeah, that's what, like
I think that the reason they did it was so that she could get custody of her and raise her, even though because she was in med school at the time.
Okay,
so they're
I
she's
can see that.
established.
Yeah.
But I feel like in other books they've
But you
books,
could
they've done it
make her
differently.
18 and then they're just close.
right.
So they're
Or don't they
Yeah.
just have like a grandmother like that's off screen somewhere that
Yeah.
like, raised them?
Or who like dies right away or something.
Yeah, she said it's sad.
Who dies while Lauren is on her way to Mars.
Yeah.
There you go.
And then
There you go.
also
See?
I
Stakes.
wanted the death of the parents to like figure into like who they were.
No. So we just have the Pike absentee parents here.
Yeah, that's it.
And which is fine because they're, adults.
Mhm.
So we don't even need the absentee parents. But Terry's parents died in a plane crash.
Right.
And Lauren's parents died in a car crash.
That's right. Yep.
Why do we even need to know about Terry's parents?
I don't know, but I'm excited because in that same paragraph, he wouldn't have been able to hold a job at McDonald's. So we get a McDonald's quote in there
Nice.
for no reason, just in the same paragraph.
Love that.
Okay, let's talk about Colonel Bill Brent,
Bill.
who is our first vampire,
Mm-hmm.
our first of our crew
Yeah.
vampire. I don't have a description of Colonel Bill. I know he's married to Jessica, who's 32.
Yeah.
She is a rail thin dark-skinned woman with thick lips, a short afro, and dizzy expressions.
Yeah, that was a very strange.
So I
Yeah.
think they are both black people then, because remember later when they're talking about Bill going and he's like, they say that like racist thing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah,
him and
yes,
Jessica
you're right,
are both
you're right.
black. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
You're right.
okay.
You're right.
I don't know why we don't get any other description of
Yeah.
him.
No,
but
I mean, really, it's because there are too many characters here.
yeah.
I mean, it's legit because the guy staying in orbit, like, I get it all. I get why we did this and the ages of everybody. It's just a lot to take, especially when we're used to Pike's
like 4
bloated,
people.
if slightly more economical character balance.
Yeah. I think the scale here was a bit bigger. And so he thought he could have these characters that weren't so closely tied like his other books where there's too many, but they're all talking to each other. So it feels kind of like more chaos. Whereas this one, I'm going to be honest with you. I thought he was saying that as in like space talk, like Mark 1, like Mark 2.
Oh.
I didn't realize that was a person until like pretty far in. Like, so there were extra people here that they didn't need to have.
And Bill is interesting, I think, but Jessica seems only to be there to be upset that Bill is now not himself.
Right. Yes.
And for there to be another girl with
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Lauren.
that's true.
Yeah.
Right. Like she's not someone like when the book is over, you're like, what did Jessie really do in the book?
Yeah, and she apparently wasn't a vampire when Lauren killed her.
Right.
I think they were lying.
Oh, you think? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think they were telling the truth because remember how weird she was acting?
Yeah,
Like
but
in
I
that
mean,
little cave
her
thing?
husband died becoming a vampire, and
Sure, but she was like, "Come back and look at the island with me. Like,
That's
come
true,
back
that's
with
true.
me." Yeah, no, she was gone.
Yeah.
Okay,
And they wanted her to feel bad, so I think they were just lying. They had proven that they would lie.
that's fair.
When you were reading like the certain parts of it where they're like in the dark and whatever, did any of you get weirded out when they talk about the tidal wave that comes? Because I'm like, I thought I had a visual sense of like where they are and what's happening. Then all of a sudden there's a tidal wave, and like I don't know. How did in my head I'm like, this doesn't fit to like what I think it all looks like.
It's so weird because it is so alien, and I think as we're reading it, we're trying to put it in context.
Yeah.
Like the little island that they go to, I'm thinking, okay, when I imagined Gollum with the ring and doing the riddles with Bilbo in the dark, this is what I see.
Okay.
Oh, but no, it's massive.
Yeah.
It's a big
but
island.
Olympus Mons.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the largest volcano in the solar system.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so this is all massive.
Yeah.
He says that it goes on for miles too, and that it goes beyond where they could see. So when they said the tidal wave, I believed that. The thing that was weird to me was that when she's sitting on the beach, she's like turning up her sound really high. So she's like, I'm gonna hear any footsteps. Like, okay, you were worried about being able to hear a footstep, but you can hear a fucking tidal wave coming from all the way down the cavern. Like,
right.
That was the only part that I was just like, what the heck? But
yeah. Yeah, totally.
Well, before we go there, let's talk about Mark Kawati.
Mark 1, Mark 2.
Who is of Japanese descent, as short as Lauren's 5'3", with a small round face and extremely crooked teeth.
Oh boy.
Who doesn't have much to do at all except die. And gets a shitty introduction. He is Pike's token, I'm shitting on this character for no reason.
Yeah.
Introduction.
And then he dies.
And then he dies.
He does have the cool thing where he tells them from the perspective of the person who was left up in orbit, which is what that other guy they found who had gouged his eyes. So you can kind of get a little bit of insight as to what that character went through before he killed himself, which I thought was cool.
Yeah.
But that was really all I got from that.
I really like that the mere fact of seeing Mars out your portal window all the time
made you
was upsetting. Yeah. There's a lot to like here.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk plot. Yeah.
That was a great visual.
But let's get to Professor Jim Rannoth.
I
who's
love him.
52.
I was
He's
so
the elder
yes.
of the book.
I know he's like George Clooney in my head. Like when I first read
he's
it.
like a
Yeah,
sweet
yeah.
old guy. I picture him as like an old guy, like dressed kind of like he's going to Jurassic Park or something with like a hat, you know,
Yeah.
and like a vest. Like,
I mean,
oh, I love it.
let's just give it to Sam Neill. Let's fucking give it to Sam Neill.
Oh my
Come on.
God, yeah.
It'll give us the Event Horizon tie-in,
Yeah.
but also the wise older guy that you just like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jim reminded her of her father. They both seemed so wise. They even looked similar. Sun-beaten skin, thinning gray hair, lines of hardships and triumphs etched in their faces. I like that. And he's the goofy guy who's smuggling sugar on the trip.
And coffee, yeah.
Because
That's
he thought the
relatable.
doctors were wrong about sugar being unhealthy. It tasted too good. No, I like him a lot.
Yeah.
And his he's the guy who in the beginning changes his will or sets up his will to give everything to Lauren Wagner.
Yep.
No, to her sister.
To
I think.
Jennifer. To
Oh,
Jennifer.
I'm
yeah.
sorry,
Yeah.
to Jennifer, yeah.
And he gives her the
And
ring.
He gives her the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Like his stuff and his trip to the Himalayas,
Yeah.
The
where
water.
he theoretically goes back in time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, so we're going to have to unpack that, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's a really interesting character, and at 52, it gives Flanagan such wide breadth of character actors to cast in the role.
Oh, you know who could do it? Also, well, there's so many, honestly, but
Yeah,
like,
yes.
Sam Rockwell.
Oh, Sam Rockwell would be awesome, and then you have Moon as the tie-in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
But
Or give it to Ewan McGregor. I mean, he's getting up there.
oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, I love.
Seriously, Cassie, you need to watch Dr. Sleep.
I'm going to. Sorry.
It's
I know.
amazing.
I know. Everybody tells me to. I will. I want to.
It has no business being as
There are
good as
two,
it is.
right? There's a first one and a second one?
No, there's just one. There's a director's cut and a regular cut. Highly
and you said to
recommend the
watch.
director's cut.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay. I gotcha.
I mean, they're both very good, but the director's cut is superb. Okay, so let's move on to Ivan Zosima, who's basically a zombie and then a vampire. So he doesn't really have a part, but he's
so creepy.
terrifying.
Yeah.
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 He grinned and showed her all his yellow teeth. She noticed then how red his lips were, how bloodshot his eyes looked. They were like a couple of rotting strawberries staring through vein slots. Staring
Oh my
through vein slots. Huh. Okay.
It was just
Yes.
I remember the first time reading it when they find Ivan,
Yeah.
and yeah, like that was that. I mean, you knew obviously going into the book so much bad shit's gonna happen, but that was that's the beginning where you're like, oh man, this is just gonna go so wrong from here on out. Like,
He
And it's
reminded
so
me of
unexpected.
yeah, like you
he
definitely
reminds me
thought
of
it
the
was,
guy from As Above, So Below, where like when they find him in the tunnels.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That like mole guy, and he's got like those creepy eyes, and like he's answering them kind of, but like not really, and he's just like, come on, follow me, like follow me.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
that whole time I was like, don't follow him in the book. Like I was reading, don't
Yeah.
follow him, he's bad.
Don't
And
follow
they
him.
follow him.
Yep.
Well, I get a lot of that vibe here. You know, it's like I keep mentioning Event Horizon because it feels like it.
Mhm.
And Event Horizon came after this, so it's not like it's rip off in any way.
Right.
And it's the horrors of space. It's the haunted house in space. It's the vampire story in space. And
Yeah.
it's something that just doesn't get done much.
No.
And that's what makes it so interesting, because it's not just a vampire story. And her little the repeated, come love me, Lawrence, that
Mhm.
stuff is so frightening.
Yes.
Like, this may be the first Pike book that I felt frightened by.
Yeah. It was, yeah. It's also, like, when you think about like what you were asking before, why you still love Christopher Pike, or like what about his book stays with you. And I think with a lot of the books, you just like remember certain lines. And for this
Mhm.
one, a big one for me is a little pinch and then sweet. Scares the shit out of me. Like, it's just
Yes.
something about like imagining like someone creepily whispering that scares me, like still to this day. And I feel like if they use that in the movie, I'm going to have like a full on like, "Whoa," like in the theater, like, yeah.
What these lines reminded me a lot of is there's a tiny bit that's very silly in The Stand, but I find it frightening too. It's "Come and eat chicken with me down here, beautiful."
Oh,
it's so dark.
It's so dark.
Yeah. It's so upsetting, that line, and I can't really explain why. It's just upsetting, and there's that same level of I keep wanting to say like moist horror.
Yes, moist horror. That's actually a very good way to put it, especially because of the way that they describe the sucking sounds when they have sex and someone overhears it. Well, gross.
Well, we have one more character before we jump into the plot formally. It's Daniel, a 14-year-old part Indian who collects weapons.
Helps Jennifer.
Daniel wound up being far more important than I thought.
Yes. Yeah.
And that was surprising to me.
Yeah.
And also unbelievable because he's fucking 14.
Right. I know. That's like we said before. The ages are all wrong for literally everyone. All the characters are the wrong
you make them
ages.
17.
Yes.
And they're still essentially children.
Yes, exactly.
But what I think Pike did here is he was trying so hard to not write his standard characters that he way downsized Jennifer and Daniel's ages to avoid being just another Pike 17 or 18-year-old.
Right. Yeah. And also what Cassie said before about with Jennifer being so young to sort of make it make sense about how Lauren got custody. I think like that's obviously, the move that now that we say it out loud, that makes total sense. And then also, I think it also drives home the fact that you're supposed to understand that Lauren mothered Jennifer.
Oh, very true. Yeah.
Because the parents were gone. And meanwhile, it's like just funny because underneath it all, Jennifer is like the princess / queen who had to look out for her sister, and try to protect her. And which we'll get into that obviously.
Well, before we jump away from Daniel, I do want to give us one of the problematic moments in here is if Terry comes, have Daniel give a blast on his gun. What if he doesn't have any bullets? Lauren was already among the trees, the pine needles crackling under her bare feet. Then have him send up smoke signals.
Yeah, not great.
Because he's part Native American.
Yeah.
So there you go, everybody.
Yep.
There you go.
Not great, Christopher. Not great.
I mean, not as bad as some of the other problematic moments in this book.
Oh, yeah.
But definitely on the iffy side there.
Yeah.
And, too, because of how much the Native American stuff played into Monster, how interesting that's who helps at the end of this one.
Very true.
In the forest, there's so many parallels between these two books that I don't know how he got them both published without somebody calling him out.
Well, now you have done it. You've stood up here, Cassie, and called him the fuck out.
But I'm doing it in a way that make it be known that I love both of these books. So I'm glad they both exist. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm just saying, hey, did you know this? Because I feel like other people knew this, or you knew this.
Let's put this to Pike, who may be listening. We never know. Is this a shared universe? And if not, why don't we just pretend it is?
Please, can it be? I just want the one planet.
Honestly, it very well could. There's nothing in these two books that really contradicts each other dramatically.
That's true.
There's even stuff that supports it, like the magnetic island and the blood and the magnets in Monster and the iron. Oh, I need it.
Yeah. I agree. So we're just going out on a limb and saying yes. Shared universe.
Shared universe.
If he doesn't say no, I guess that means yes.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
For just so we're clear, that quote can only be taken in this context for this specific thing from me ever is what I'm saying just about this.
So you're coming out in favor of consent in general.
I am. Yes,
Just
I'm
not
very
in
pro
this
consent.
specific moment.
But in this one thing where I'm asking Pike specifically if these two things are involved, I don't need consent to believe that they are.
No, that's very true.
We can categorize it under no news is good news.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's that. Yeah, that's how we'll put it under that category.
Can you imagine if they make another movie after for Monster, and it's like part 2 of Season of Power, but it's the teens? It's the I want it so bad.
Yes. Oh my God, that we deserve that.
Mr. Flanagan, if you're listening, anybody involved with Mr. Flanagan,
since he's doing both, I mean, Monster may be figuring into
Midnight Club.
Never know.
Of course, we have to remember. Monster opens with a shooting at a high school party.
Right,
that's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I don't need all that or the racist Native American stuff. I just want the vampires and the blood.
Vampires.
I mean, though at the same time, I would enjoy a balls out just walking into a party with a shotgun.
Yeah.
Mary was a badass.
I can disassociate that from school shootings.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fair. Yeah, it was a party.
That doesn't sound callous, does it? A little.
No,
maybe.
I think because the setting of it too, they didn't even frame it as if it were like a school type thing.
Right.
It was like they could have been in college or in their 20s or something. I mean, I know they were in high school, but they could have been like.
Yeah, we could age them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be college.
It's
because that's better. College shootings.
Monster
college
podcast
shootings are
part 2.
slightly better than high school shootings.
Slightly better, right? Right.
God. You know what character we didn't discuss?
Friend. Yeah.
Friend.
I forgot about Friend.
Poor Friend.
I
Friend
really
was like Hal.
I like that Friend is like Hal in that he's used as an obstacle, but he's not like Hal in that he is actually a friend.
Yeah.
He's been broken by the character, just like Lauren. He's been infected by the badness of Mars, essentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I love I'm tricking him to blow up half his brain.
Yeah, like mainly because she realizes because Friend doesn't address her the way that it always does in one moment and like something's bothering her and she's like
when he calls her Lori.
Yes. And she knows that it always calls her Lauren, right? Or does it call her Dr. Lauren Wagner?
No, it calls her. I think it calls her Lauren.
Yeah. I just remember like it doesn't call her Lauren in the moment.
And not only does it call her Lori, but then it claims it didn't.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. It argues later too. Yeah.
Exactly.
No, that was a really cool thing, and I love the fact that it speaks in brackets. I'm a big fan of creative punctuation in books.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having it speak in brackets is a really great way to distinguish it from the people, I thought. Yeah. Yeah, Friend was cool. I like and I was worried when I started reading it that it was going to just be a Hal thing.
Yeah.
So the fact that it not only met my expectations but also subverted them is a very nice trick.
Yeah, and I think I know this isn't problematic, but I did like that the scientific stuff he had in this, like it's obviously not something that's like it's not like as Star Trek-y as it could be. Right. But it was a lot more well developed, I think, than some of his other sci-fi stuff that we've read so far. The Tachyon Web, for example, that one, like it was like, is this didn't need to be in space? Like a lot of this didn't need to be in space.
Right.
But
Why
this one,
this
it was
sci-fi?
like right. But like this, we had suits, we had like different kind of shuttles and things.
Yeah.
We had we had cool stuff.
He thought through so much of it that it makes me again believe that it was something he was reading about space travel, about Mars exploration, some speculative science articles, and he put all of that in.
Yeah,
because the idea that they're carrying a warhead that they would detonate should there be a mutiny on returning with a virus.
Right.
It's like, that's a very legitimate concern, right?
Yeah.
And the idea that they may have to make that choice is really a big, fascinating dilemma. And and the fact that the Russians made that choice. Because they did, right? One of them,
the captain did.
Captain did.
Yeah,
he did.
The other ones were all just like, "Yeah, let's go out at 2 a.m.
I want to be a vampire. Sure.
Yeah, so stupid.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to Remember Me and discuss the plot here. This was fascinating to me because it's 1992.
Yeah.
And the first Russian touchdown on Mars in this book is 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So he's only playing with a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did look up the Mars Odyssey orbiter was in 2001. So we really started getting into Mars stuff in 2001, which is cool.
Yeah.
And very early on, they say in another 20 years, they'll probably have tourist flights to Mars.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, close. We do have assholes with a lot of money taking tourism to space.
I have a tweet, which is so funny. It's too bad we weren't following each other sooner, because when Elon Musk was talking about going to Mars and all this stuff, I had made a tweet that said, anyone with, any sense of intelligence who's read The Season of Passage knows, do not go to fucking Mars. Like, there's nothing good
on Mars.
Do not go to Mars. And then I was like, actually, we can send Elon Musk to Mars. That's fine. He can go.
That's fine. No, but he'll come back a vampire.
He'll come back a vampire and he'll ruin
and he'll
us
just
all.
feed off of his Amazon warehouse people.
Oh, God.
It's going to be horrible.
And we don't have a Jennifer to save us, I don't think.
We don't.
That's true. Or special rings.
No, because the world doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
It's just all horrible.
Yeah. But yeah, like what you were saying before about Jim, I really want to see on screen his whole side thing of going to the Himalayas and
me too.
And they're
Me
like,
too.
I love that whole weird thing where
it would be so pretty and weird.
Yeah. And how it's like not till he's going to Mars that he realizes how this is all somehow connected. And that, that he knows to do what he does before, he knows he's going to die on this trip, I think. But, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, Jennifer knows everyone's going to die.
Yes. So I have some interesting things that I picked up from just plot stuff. I love the fact that they use video phones. That feels so 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yes.
Jim has a pocket computer at one point. Mm. But everybody still uses word processors and typewriters, which in 1992, there were computers.
I know. And Terry's writing his story on his typewriter.
Yeah, I mean, they have an AI computer, but they're still writing on a typewriter.
Maybe that's just like a preferential thing, because King says that he still likes to write on like a typewriter and stuff.
True.
And,
yeah.
So maybe it's just...
I do find it very amusing that the typewriter is specifically designed to write in Jennifer's handwriting as a font.
Yeah,
that is weird.
That was weird.
Because honestly, that's the most horrible thing that could ever happen, is somebody just writing out their manuscript on a typewriter in their own handwriting. Like, there's no good thing about that at all. Nothing good about that. That's just personal preference. Mine, you may feel differently.
No, my handwriting is shit. I don't want a typewriter doing that.
No, my handwriting is terrible.
I also found a bit of very prescient protesting discussion. Are they bad people, Terry? She asked. No, he said. They're just people who have been misled by a man more powerful than themselves.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid. They're afraid of things changing. Mm-hmm. Does that sound like something you may have heard on the news recently, I think? Good God.
Extremely prescient. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God. That's, yeah.
Now, we do have a very advanced version of herpes in this book.
Yes, that's right.
The HS9 virus, the latest and vilest form of herpes. It affects the whole body with cold sores that last as long as warts and look like yellow-headed pimples. Dear God.
That's like,
no thanks.
Well, that I think also goes back to how I felt rereading Whisper of Death a long time ago. Like, is Christopher Pike very Catholic or kind of like anti-premarital sex?
No. Here on the Pikecast, we have felt that Pike himself seems progressive,
Mm-hmm.
but Pike's publishers seem regressive.
Ah.
So it always feels like he has to balance the whims of the publishers.
Yeah.
Like everything about the negativity surrounding the abortion
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
feels like an afterthought to his story.
Yeah.
And his sexuality feels like a positive to the story. So, I mean, honestly, we don't know because we don't really know Pike because he doesn't talk much.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it feels like to us.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Especially, for the time periods coming out. Like when I was listening to your Whisper of Death podcast and you guys are all laughing about they're a teenage couple in trouble and they try to solve their problems over the weekend and they don't really succeed.
They have a little trouble.
Yeah. And it's so funny because what a way to describe that they don't actually go through with an abortion.
I know.
Way to gloss right over that. But also you're right. They probably couldn't put the word abortion on the back of the book back then. Or,
oh no, I'm sure they couldn't.
As part of the marketing. So that's something too, like rereading them now, I have to think about how things were in that time period and what marketing was like and what, what you could talk about in promoting the book. And that's probably why a bunch of,
and that's true even of these adult books is they would have to be very subtle with what they were saying it was.
Yeah.
They could put whatever they want inside a book because there are no book ratings.
Right.
Which is always fascinating to me, is literally you can have whatever you want inside of a book. Which just isn't true about any other media.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in this book. Let me see if I can recap the essentials. Okay. Trip to Mars takes what was it, 30 days? 3 months? I don't remember. How long does it take to get to Mars?
I think it was 3 months, but I could
3
be
months?
wrong.
3 months, yeah, because they were asleep for 3 months.
Okay, so they're in hypersleep, and I really love the way they actually, it feels researched, it feels thought out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sleep. It's not suspended animation. It's hibernation. So they are actually sleeping. They're not frozen like a lot of these.
Right.
A lot of sci-fi does.
Yeah, it's like actual bears.
Yeah, like actual bears.
Instead of those fake bears. Those fake space bears.
Fucking space bears.
God, we hate those.
Yeah. So
no
they
space
get
bears.
to Mars. They go at the behest of the government because there was a Russian trip to Mars, and it went badly, and they disappeared. So of course we want to follow that.
Of course, yeah.
And see what happened there.
Let's make it
worse.
And
because they have a photo from several years before that shows footsteps on the planet.
Yeah.
Yes. Which
does show clawed footsteps.
But they don't actually acknowledge this until right before they're going.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's lizard people.
It's lizard people.
Maybe.
Lizard vampires.
Lizard people vampires.
Yeah.
Reptile demon vampires.
Yeah,
they were demons.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he goes to Mars, discovers we think a zombie, but it's a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Then I love I just want to take you one at a time to see this thing.
Yeah, right.
It's like, could you be more suspicious?
Seems super safe.
It's like, no, it's best for the crew. Is it? Just one at a time. Let's go see this thing.
This random obscure thing. And they're like, wait, but what is it? Oh, you're going to love it.
You're going to love it.
Fantastic. But I can only take you one at a time. Okay, but what is it?
This is the kind of thing that modern technology like digital photography would completely eliminate.
Yeah.
Oh, if they had a camera, they would.
Yeah,
oh,
because of course they had cameras. They just couldn't print the photos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why weren't they just out there snapping pictures? They didn't.
They were, but they couldn't print the photos.
Why?
Because why would you have a darkroom on a spaceship?
What about Polaroids?
Oh, they could have had Polaroids. Yeah.
Why wasn't there a Polaroid camera?
Why wasn't there a Polaroid camera?
There's just a team of us here every time Pike wants to write a book, and we're like, wait a minute, what about
Polaroids, Pike? Why doesn't Bill have a Polaroid camera? Oh, because plot? Oh, that's not an excuse.
It might not have worked underground anyways, because they said like modern technology and things. They stop working the closer you get to the island.
Why is the camera not working? Yeah, then you have to go into the whole ghost hunting. Oh, the battery's dead. Oh my God. I don't have a signal on my cell phone.
The magnetic force field.
Yes, exactly. So there are solutions. You're right. There are solutions. Go down. They apparently drink of the blood of the master vampire, because that's apparently how you'll create a vampire.
Yeah.
Not sure how the water plays in, but I'm going to ask you ladies for help there. And then vampires come back from Mars, and then they have to be destroyed, right?
Yes.
Hey,
yeah,
I got the whole plot.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, do you feel, the story that Jennifer writes that's about the ancient race? That's
I forgot about
that. Do you get like shades of the Immortal from that?
I have not read The Immortal. Right? We haven't done The Immortal.
Okay.
Right?
No, I want to, but we have not.
Okay.
I felt a lot of it's the last vampire that has the snake pit, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was feeling here.
Okay.
The last vampire,
Yeah.
and what's the one where he keeps having the Egypt dreams?
Oh,
we just did that one.
Yeah.
With the girls and the souls and the triplets, the Lost Mind.
Lost Mind, yeah. So that's what I was feeling.
Okay.
And and I'm going to say right off the bat, I fucking hated those sections. There was I'm already inundated with too many characters, and now you're going to give me characters with non-traditional names and places with non-traditional places, and it sounds racist when I say it that way.
Cooper, I was just going to say, it sounds like you're saying this wasn't white enough. And I don't know if that's how you mean this.
Hold on. I'm going to acknowledge that that's what it sounded like. I'm going to also say that's totally not what I mean.
No, yeah.
I can't read fantasy books.
That's
because
fair.
There's too many things that I have to keep track of. So there's people with I can't discern whether names should be male or female. I can't discern, they're calling weird things money. I don't know what's going on. So I have a hard time reading that stuff already.
Well, it feels very semi-biblical.
It does.
And until it goes into the really graphic lizard vampire rape that happens, and then you're
I will tell you, I didn't read past the first one.
I told you guys missed a lot. There was some shit that I did not remember from when I read this.
I'm going to push it on the people who did read that.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it was bad. I'm saying it wasn't for me.
It's just
no, and I think that's fair. If you don't like those parts of the other stories, that is, for me, what I remember from being a child, that is Christopher Pike's thing, where he deals with a lot of stuff from Indian culture specifically.
And it definitely felt like that.
Yeah, and that's why it pops up in so many of his books. And they are, so the thing is, this one in this book, and I really do wish you guys had read it, because this is the one that differs from the others, and that those are all a lot more metaphysical. This one's a lot gorier and more like demons, because they're supposed to be demon vampires, so they're very brutal.
See, I never got to the demons. I just got to people standing around talking about peace.
Yeah, and that's fair. So I'll tell you then what happened. So with that, since you guys didn't read that, you and Becca. So the sister, the woman and her husband are there, and they're ruling over all their children. They're humans. They're the very first humans, so they're perfect and pure. There are these other creatures.
That's why it's in the garden, because they're kind of Adam and Eve.
Yeah,
exactly. It's supposed to be a kind of a comparison or representational of it. And they mention that in the story too when they're talking about Jennifer's writing. Mm-hmm. But so these other creatures are coming, and they're different from them, and they can't live the same way they do. Their way of procreating, their way, their reproduction, everything is completely different. Where they're from, they can no longer survive.
And so these creatures are the vampires.
Yes.
Right. So they start moving in, and at first they let them live in the mountains, and then they get greedy and start pushing over. So there's a first big war. Mm-hmm. After that big war, so many lives are lost that they retreat to the garden. The other people retreat backwards. And then that's when they send their leader over with two people of theirs, and then they come over. And this is where the king is I'm not going to do this with you. I'm not going to trade our people for yours so we can get to know each other's lives, because that's what they want, because they don't trust them.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, I'm going to go with you. So the king goes with the lizard people, the vampires. Then they find out that he murdered him. They find the ring, his finger's still in the ring. It's like really
murdered
gory.
The king?
Yeah.
They murdered the king. Yeah. Okay. And they don't, so then they're like, okay, fuck this. And now it's up to the queen. And the queen is the one who's like very peaceful. She doesn't want to bring harm, but her sister and her sister's husband, who are the two like lead warriors, they're very vengeful. So the brother or the warrior goes out, he goes to fight. He gets captured. So at this point, both sides are in war again. They're losing. The king is dead. The brother is captured, or the husband is captured of the sister. So the sister's like, you need to take like revenge. Like, we need to bring down the fire and kill these people and defeat them. And then she's like, no, like, we want peace. Like, we don't want this. We don't want anything bad to happen. So the sister goes off then. She's like, okay, fine. I'll give you some fire. You can get them to go away. The sister gets too vengeful. She crosses over a boundary, so she loses the connection with her sister. And then now they've got her. So the guy takes her in, and he's like, he tricks her into saying she gives up the protection of the king and the queen, who the king let himself die so that he could protect all of his children and his wife in the garden. So because she gives up her protection, it's actually a ritual that the lead vampire is orchestrating, but she doesn't know. He's holding her husband, who's been like, his arms are ripped open, his bones are sticking out, he's covered in caked and dried blood. They hold him over this pool of lava and start slowly putting him in. And just so you guys know, this is after he's already cracked open an egg and put a vampire fetus in the lava slowly. Yeah. We watch this happen. Yep. There's a lot of gore and screaming. You guys missed so much.
I love how like enthusiastic you are right now.
Because the gore, I'm so excited. So she's hanging. She thinks her husband's dead. The sister is there, not the goddess, but the sister is there. Yeah. She thinks he's dead. She's like, fine, put him in the lava. Let me go back to my sister. I'll tell her the message you want. I'm loyal to you. I'm not loyal to my sister. I'll do whatever you want. He's like, okay. So he lifts up her husband, puts him in the lava. He starts screaming. She's like, what the fuck? He's not dead. He's like, I never told you he was dead. You just believed he was dead. Now what do you want to do? And she's like, well, he's already injured. Like, just put him in there. So she's making these bad choices that are selfish because she's scared and she just wants to get back to her sister. And so the guy ends up tricking her into saying she gives up all protection, tricking her into ripping off the ring from her finger, throwing it on the ground so that it's no longer her connection to her sister. Then he rapes her. He puts his seed inside her. Then it begins to start killing her. And then after all of this, he's like, well, you're mine now. The ritual's done. Everything's cursed forever. Then he puts her into the lava. After like they break her arms and put her onto the hook thing, then they start lowering her into the lava. He's like, I was never going to let you go back to your sister. It's too late. And then she slips the ring on at the last second. She's like, he doesn't know this, but she's like, I'm still loyal to my sister. Like, please, like, I'm so sorry. And like, she's like loving her sister. And then she gets put into the lava and dies. And that's why the curse never actually worked.
Yeah.
I know, y'all. Yeah. I'm telling you.
Well, okay.
These curses were good.
That was a lot though. So like,
it was.
It was a lot. Yeah.
Here's my question. Maybe that didn't need to start happening early in the book. Maybe that entire thing could have been after we meet a vampire.
But we don't know the connection.
Well, but we know there's a connection, because otherwise why are they doing this?
That's fair.
I mean, immediately I knew she was writing the story of whatever they were finding on Mars. I just didn't care because I wanted to see what they were finding on Mars. It's like, yeah, get me interested first. Don't just, and now here's a 20-page excerpt from a short story that the 13-year-old girl is writing.
That Terry reads.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, too, is because you already didn't like that vibe of the things in the other stories, you read that first part and you were like, nope, done. Yeah. Which is totally fair. Totally. Yeah, and I totally get where you guys are coming from. I'm not, no shade or anything. For me, because I like those parts of the other books.
Yeah, you have always been invested in those a lot more than us.
So those are the parts that I'm like, fuck, cool. Like, we're going back to India, and that's like, here we go. And then there's like a vampire demon, and then there's like, all this shit. And I was like, Becca and Cooper are gonna love this. Yeah. Oh my god, there's so and lava. I know. And then you guys were both like, I didn't read those parts. I skipped them. I was like, oh, I got to the lava and the infant, like the creature infant being put into the thing, and I was like, oh my god, Becca, you're missing it.
Oh my.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's totally fair. If you guys ever feel like going back, you can just read those parts of the book.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it would be good on its own.
Yeah. Like a short story of like weird demons.
I mean,
and stuff.
I think that's what it is. Like, when I'm reading certain books of his, I understand that that's what the book is. Like, I'm already out of my general comfort zone with sci-fi because I'm a horror fan. I want horror. So sci-fi, and then adding on
folklore.
Well,
stuff.
it's sort of biblical, but also
It's
sort
kind
of
like
fantasy.
Yeah.
And it's like you've not only pulled me. It's like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
And your description, that's interesting. I have no idea how they'll turn that into a movie.
I'm so excited, dude. I can't wait to see this shit on screen. Like, this is the trifecta for me because unlike y'all, I love fantasy, I love sci-fi, and I love horror. So this book is like, I feel like throwing this in all of my horror friends' faces and be like, read this. This is really cool. This has got gross shit in it. You're gonna like this.
What's really interesting to me about this book is it doesn't feel like it's going to be horror at the beginning.
No, it
It
doesn't.
doesn't.
And
But
so that's surprising. Like when the eyeball is floating and she's looking at, it's like, oh, it's that book.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it now. And then it becomes vampires. And then it's like they're looking, it's like, well, this is interesting. What are we doing here? So I was really engaged in the book because of all its zigzags.
Yeah, it does go in a lot of directions.
You know, like the best way I can sum it up is I'm a major serial killer nut. Like I want to read about serial killers. And I read The Devil in the White City, which is half a book about America's first serial killer, H.H. Holmes, and half a book about the building of the Columbian Exposition in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself skipping through the Holmes sections to read about the exposition because that was the side of the book that captured my attention. And I feel like that's what was happening here. It's like if I'm thoroughly engaged in something, I don't want to jump to something else. It's the same thing, you know, like A Wizard in Glass may be one of the best Dark Tower books ever, and it is. But that's not what I wanted to read after the end of Drawing of the Three. I didn't want to take an entire book detour from the main storyline, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like to me. It's like, I'm with you. And now you threw something that just, it's like you poured all this cold water on my enthusiasm for what's actually happening right now.
I was looking for clues because I was like, okay, what in this story, like, how is it paralleling what's going on Mars, or like who are these people in correlation? And because at first the first time I read it, I was wrong in thinking like Lauren is, you know, the Queen Chanine or whatever her name was, and then as I'm reading, I'm like, no, wait. Then I'm like, is the Ivan Zombie guy? Is he? And then I'm like, no, he's just like a pawn of this whole thing, like
right.
And the oh god, trying to think of like the demon lizard vampire's names. Like it's in my head, it like sounds like Saltine. It's like Cratine or Cratine.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is. Hold on, I have that actually.
Yeah,
Cratine. Yeah,
Cratine, and I'm like, but who's Cratine in real, like in Mars life, and how does this correlate? But Cassie explained that whole segment like in the best possible way that I actually got all excited to read it and watch it all over again. I was like, yes, that is exactly what happens. Yeah, that is so wild. Like, I can't believe we read this. Like, it's so weird that this is what happens in the book.
Right, because it's like, it feels like these different stories, because like when you're
really
reading it. So for me personally, my favorite stories in movies even too are like the ones where they have all these different characters and you're watching a different story, and then when you're like, oh god, what's going to happen next, it cuts and then it goes to a different character and they don't have anything to do with that person, and then at the very end for the last half hour they put everything together and you're like, oh shit. Like, I know, Cooper.
This is really cool though.
It explains a lot about me though, doesn't it? What I like.
Not only explains about you, but explains about the differences in the way we see the Pike books.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is very interesting from a, I mean, I'm saying it's interesting. Listeners, you may not find it as interesting, but I think it's interesting as a podcast host that we are approaching it from two very different perspectives there. And it's something that I'm noticing a lot in the extended series television, like The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, like Flanagan's work, is we go up to a certain point in a linear fashion, and then we spend a good long time, rewinding and showing, and then this person got here, and then this, and I don't know that it's not good or bad. So when I'm saying this, I'm not disparaging that type of writing. It's just definitely not like I write linearly. That's just my writing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what it is I like a linear story, because if I'm at a cliffhanger, I want to turn the page and have the cliffhanger resolve.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't want to have a cliffhanger and then know that 100 pages from now, the cliffhanger is getting resolved.
So like, it's really easy for me to like become engaged, I think, in something if I'm into it. So like, I have that moment of like annoyance where I'm just like, wait, but I wanted to know. But then I'm like, oh, here we go. We're on to Kathy and Lorraine again.
So they've distracted you.
Yes, and that's what it is with me. I get so distracted so easily. And so for this, it's like, oh shit, we're like doing a Dead Space thing where there's an eyeball floating with some blood. And then, oh shit, we're on Mars and there's like this beautiful, vast landscape being described. And then like, oh shit, I'm in the woods with like running through the woods with like a sister and like fires everywhere. And just, it was, I think because it's so easy for me to get so engaged from all these different things that I'm like, super into it the whole time, whereas you're like, but what the fuck happens down on Earth? Like, what the hell is happening in the space station? I don't care about the cave. What's happening on the shuttle? Like, so I get that, but I think it's interesting how different it is and why. And even if you look back to some of the other books we've rated that are less linear, that you and Becca usually like less, and I'm like, yes, this is great. It's so funny.
Guessing what it is I'm old, and I know I only have a limited amount of time left on this planet, and I just want to get to the fucking point.
He's like, I want A, B, done. That's it. I'm like A, B, F, G, F.
You can throw a C in there if you really have earned it.
I get so excited about it. Have you ever seen the movie 1114?
1114.
Okay, so this is me recommending a movie. It's really weird and twisty and dark. So
is it it's time travel?
I don't know. It's not time travel, but it's one where they have different stories and then they connect. And there's a bit of kind of gore, creepy. I'm not going to spoil it, but there's a specific scene in a graveyard that if you guys watch this and you come back to me later, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. And if any of our listeners know the movie 1114, the graveyard scene,
it's 1114, like the time. 11. Okay.
Like yeah. And it's really good. But that's like one of I haven't seen it in a few years. So, but I remember like thinking like, when I watched that and I realized how much I liked it, that was when I realized that I like all these different stories then coming together to be explained.
Yeah.
And so I recommend that movie to people a lot, but not a lot of people have seen it.
Well,
but it's good.
I will put it on my list, but you have to watch Dr. Sleep.
I'm Googling it right now. Oh, it came out in 2003 and Patrick Swayze's in it?
Yeah.
What?
It's got a decent amount of people that like, because it's big, interconnected. So there's like different characters and stuff. But yeah.
Oh, I definitely need to watch. It says neo-noir black comedy thriller. And
I'm putting it on my list.
Stars Rachel Lee Cook, Ben Foster, Clark Gregg, Colin Hanks.
Rachel Lee Cook?
Yeah.
I love her. That's why I think that's the reason I originally watched it, was because I found out she was in it and I really love her.
Henry Thomas. Huh. Yeah. Okay. I'm not going to keep scrolling down because I'll probably see a spoiler.
I think she's in the scene actually that I have a very strong memory of watching. So just so you guys know, I watched this when I was like 15, 16 or something. And I was like, whoa. So if you don't watch it and get to that scene, just check in with me and be like, hey, I watched that fucking movie, Cassie.
Don't worry. I mean, we are reading Christopher Pike books. There's not a big chance I'm going to judge anything that you've liked.
No. Yeah. Well, we got...
Okay. So now back to the fact that we're glossing over the fact that I hate that kind of storytelling. And I'm not even weighing it in my enjoyment of the book. I've just omitted it entirely from the book.
Yeah.
And that's fair.
It is interesting because they do talk about when Terry is reading Jennifer's work, the names of her two races, the Sastra and the Assyrians, were both in this book of ancient mythology that he was reading. Sanskrit words, the oldest language known to man. The definition of Sastra was the Vedas, the holy books of India. I apologize for my pronunciation as always. And Assyrians were the demons of Vedic literature.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So it is, and it's definitely one of Pike's things is Indian religious mythology. And I know I always offend people when I say the words religious mythology.
But yeah, no, and so many, like I know we've all mentioned it already tonight. so many of his books like have that. He loves his ritual sacrifices, like scavenger hunt. I was actually writing an essay once, and I was trying to describe something about how I once fell on my face, like walking in the city, just completely wiped out and went down. And like, I was so kind of like, I hit my face literally on the sidewalk because I didn't get my hands out in time. And when I was with people I worked with, we were like walking to lunch, and they like turned me over, like I was like this flailing turtle. And and as I'm laying there, like I couldn't actually hear what anyone was saying because like I just had like a ringing in my ears. And I could like see all their mouths moving and see them looking down at me. And the one description that came to mind was that part where Carl gets like knocked off the edge of the world at the sacrificial rock that they go to.
Oh yeah, right.
And he's looking up and he sees them all talking, but he can't hear anything that they're saying. And I was like referencing it, and I'm like, no one's going to get this reference. I have to delete this whole paragraph. Like, no one's going to know what the hell I'm talking about. Like, hey, Carl and Christopher Pike's scavenger hunt when he falls off the edge of the world briefly before he gets pulled back by Crazy. Right. Like, what? Like,
no, that's a deep cut.
That's
right
a very deep cut.
The deepest cut I've ever managed to sneak into an essay is Sniffits and Shy Guys from Super Mario Bros. 2.
Wow, that is okay. That's deeper, I think.
That's a deep. I don't know. You know, could be. Okay, Pikecast is going to take a quick commercial break, and when we get back, we're going to talk about the eternal enemy, which means vampires.
Vampires.
Yes.
Yes. So we'll be right back on the Pikecast. Wow, friends. Where else can you get this kind of programming than the Pikecast? Nowhere. That's where. But we're trying to keep the lights on here. If you like what you're hearing and want it to keep happening, jump over to our Patreon at thepikecast.com/Patreon and throw us a few bucks to join our private Discord server. Higher tiers get books, stickers, bookmarks, and even personalized shirts. That's thepikecast.com/Patreon.
Once, Osgood and Frost were the up-and-coming stars of the burgeoning paranormal investigation TV show craze before a hoax put an end to their friendship, partnership, and television careers. Now, over a decade later, Prudence Osgood is a barely functioning alcoholic ghost hunter for hire. Her yearning for mystery and adventure is reignited when she receives a cryptic, untraceable email. She can't resist embarking on an investigation that tugs threads, winding through a sinister series of disappearances, her former partner's family, and a night 20 years ago when a semi blew a yellow light and nearly killed her. Reviewers are calling Osgood Is Gone a masterfully vulnerable and relatable 21st century horror story, and a bourbon-soaked supernatural mystery with sparkling dialogue that sticks the landing on LGBT characters, and main character Prudence Osgood, as tortured as she is clever, broken in all the best ways, and a true heroine for our times. Buy it today at Osgood Is Gone as a paperback, ebook, or audiobook narrated by me, JJ Ronvier.
Welcome back to the Pikecast. Now we're going to move into The Eternal Enemy, where we talk about the overall thoughts on the antagonist of the book. Vampires are our big bads here.
Yeah.
Like it's not even vampiric creatures. It's literal vampires.
Yeah.
Because they're literally, I mean, I get the sense that Lauren Vampire, who is big bad vampire at the end, she is not as easily deterred by things like garlic or the crucifix. She seems less concerned about it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was never clear to me whether or not that was all the vampires are less concerned about it, or is it just about the power of the vampires?
That's a good question. I don't know either.
Yeah, because it clearly means something.
Mm-hmm.
The crucifix, the white rose,
The
the
silver
garlic,
ring, yeah.
all that stuff actually is important.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. And it's okay that it's ambiguous because we don't need overly specific. Yes, vampires do this and this and this and this.
Well, I think they mentioned too, like, so they're calling them vampires for lack of a better term, but
True,
I think that they mentioned that they are what influenced the creation of the legend of vampires in our normal society. So maybe they do have those sensitivities.
A little cheap.
Yeah.
Because that's always see, these aliens influence the Egyptians.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great.
Yeah.
These aliens, I mean, it's obviously different because that was a culture and this is vampires. But no, I don't have any problem with it. Like, because I like vampire stories, and I especially like vampire stories where the vampires are monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like reptilian, and they have these weird faces and snouts and claws, which is very unique.
And these vampires are fucking monsters.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that the planet itself is imbued with this sense of the vampires, because it's not haunted, because they say maybe the planet's haunted, and it's not. Mm-hmm. It's just difficult to look at. It's difficult to be near. And I assume that's because of whatever this vampiric power emanating from the planet is.
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's really fucking cool to make Mars the antagonist.
Yeah. No, it's wild because like it does, like, something about Mars does feel inherently evil. It's the red planet. It's, and
when you know how dangerous, objectively, how fucking dangerous Mars is.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like the moon, and the moon, like you can still see Earth from the moon. So it's kind of okay.
Yeah.
But Mars, it feels so much more alien, and it feels alien in a way where we know we actually could get there.
Yeah.
So that's the dangerous part too.
Right.
Because unlike the Starlight Crystal, where they go way the fuck out into outer space.
Right.
We're actually talking about a place that we will probably visit in the next 2 decades. A little later than the book supposed.
Yeah.
But hey, we have cell phones and they didn't. So, really, who's the winner here? So, I mean.
Yeah, now I'm thinking a lot about what you're saying about the crucifix and the rose and the ring stuff. And is it maybe that it's just supposed to weaken her to the point that Jennifer can make her remember that she gets to make a choice?
Right.
Like the choice that she...
Oh, and that very well could be.
That she didn't get to make the first time around.
The choice that Lestat never had?
Yeah. The choice from the story that Jennifer tells about the ancient race.
Oh, no, I know what you were talking about. I was just
I know, it's funny. But the oh God, why can't I think? Why can't I have words right now? My words are not coming.
Explain this to me. When Bill got them onto the island, we're supposed to believe they had the choice. Was it the choice of you can live forever as me or die?
Yes, because doesn't Jim choose to die? Like, isn't that sort of the consensus that Jim chooses death because he doesn't want? But like, also like, so my sense is that what Jim learns in the Himalayas prepares him to make that decision.
Right. And the others are not necessarily prepared.
Like he knows like this is going to be a decision that comes to pass at some point, and he's going to have to decide, do I want immortality as a horrendous, monstrous, demonic creature, or do I want or do I have to give up my life? And he, I think, makes peace with the fact that he's going to give up his life. And I think that Lauren, when she gets the choice at the end, realizes like what Cassie said earlier when she was explaining what happens in Jennifer's story is that she makes all these bad choices. That's the sister in the ancient race, like makes all the bad choices out of fear. even though like she's not believing the things that she's saying, that still like in a way leaves the door open.
Right.
Which is a big thing, which is a big recurring theme with Pike, with like the quote unquote
for sure.
leaving a door open, and so that nothing is final, which again reminds me of Scavenger Hunt. Like when they talk about doing their sacrifices, and when someone dies, then like with vengeance in their heart, that leaves the door open for the lizards to come back and play.
So I think with the lizards too, because it was like how you said the planet wasn't haunted, but it is literally like it's not the planet that's evil, because there was nothing wrong with the planet other than that it was no longer like supporting them because they were growing too rapidly as a species. But she comes back, and with the power of the actual sun, she destroys everything on the planet. So that's how it becomes Mars, because before that it was like it was not dead. So it's not the planet, it's that he literally curses her and all of her generations, so all of humanity, and the curse is that they have to come back there and be like overtaken. Like he's like, you guys will flourish on Earth, like on your planet, you'll do great, but you're going to come back here. And that's the whole thing, how like when they were looking at those pictures, they didn't notice the footprints, but the planet was calling to them because it's haunted with the spirit of all of those creatures who died, and that really hateful demon, like master vampire guy.
Right.
So it's not like the planet itself is not evil, but all the blood spilled and all of like the curse and the ritual, because he had those people there doing the actual ritual with the sister Janir, that just, it like soiled the land, which I think is something that is also something that we see in a lot of other cultures and their stories and legends and stuff, is that when blood is spilled, it sullies a place, which it does to that planet. But I think it's a little bit different in that monster where it's like the planet was talking to them, once it was gone. I think it's a little bit different from that. And that's not that, but it's like the master vampire still, it's just his, like he wants to live through his young. So he's just like constantly alive through this curse.
Yeah.
When you also have the wonderful metaphorical aspect of the infection, because there is so much concern about someone returning from space flight with an infection that we just can't fight on Earth, especially after COVID, after we've lived through an infection that we almost couldn't fight. Right. And I say almost, hoping that we actually managed to stop it. But that's stupidity, and infection that we can't fight.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought because I went in a circle there. Vampirism is an infection, and it's been portrayed as such over the ages. And I wrote about this in my first Osgood book, was the idea that a type of disease called porphyria, which rolled the gums back, making teeth look elongated, is part of the origin of vampire mythology, because that's what, when you don't know what's wrong with them, but they look monstrous, you think them monsters, right? And so it's got all these layers of an infection coming back from Mars, and the infection is in our hero, Lauren, and the infection is vampirism.
Yeah.
And it's an infection to the point where she is the lead vampire. Our hero has become the big bad. And that's a fascinating shift to me.
Yeah, that is.
And a surprising one.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's a huge kind of interesting plot point in a show like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, when like Faith comes along and is like her partner in crime, killing vampires, and then all of a sudden sides with the demonic big bad and decides to fight on the side of evil. And that's hugely interesting, because you're like, what? In that it was more of a choice. Like with Lauren, not so much a choice, but it does it, like you said, it totally shifts the narrative, and you're like, oh my God, like where is this going? Like now, but like, and because also the first time you read it, you think Jennifer is actually dead, so you're like, who's going to stop her? Like Terry's useless. Like he's not going to do it.
Terry is fucking useless. This poor 13-year-old girl and her 14-year-old boyfriend are all that stands between Earth and vampire overrun.
Yeah.
They so one of the interesting things you mentioned is that with the receding of the gums. So I don't know if it's the same thing you're talking about, but I know that in olden days, before a lot of like modern medicine stuff, people who were diabetic, they not perpetuated. A lot of people thought they were vampires because people who got sick from diabetes, they would go into like a coma type of state, and their gums would recede and their fingernails would keep growing and stuff, and they would get super pale.
Oh
and
yeah, right.
They would bury them because they would think
Oh
they were
my
dead,
God.
and then they would come back to, like, they would not be dead. They'd be in a coma, so they'd wake up or whatever, like in poor shape still, like dig themselves out of graves and then like
Yeah.
die.
Oh my
Yeah.
And so they'd be coming back from the dead, people thought, and they're just like vampires because their teeth were longer, their nails were longer. Yeah. So
you have no idea how to explain something like that.
No, yeah. And vampire legends, and I've just been, obviously, y'all know I love vampires, but there's so many different things and so many different explanations. I think that's why I like this too, because it's so hard to find a different take on vampirism. Yeah. So having them be like partially like reptiles or something, like with cold blood, like it's just so interesting.
Yeah.
And it never, one thing that this doesn't do that I question some of Pike's things, like in Scavenger Hunt, lizard people. Okay.
I love the lizard people. I'm here for the lizard people.
No, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But you got to admit, lizard people, kind of silly.
It's
right.
If by silly you mean fucking awesome and cool and like, awesome, like
okay.
Long live the lizard people, because they do. Yes, they do live long.
Enough.
Godzilla.
But what I like about this is it implies lizard people without ever using the words they're lizard people.
That's fair. Yeah, they do. They mention reptiles and like snakes and stuff, but they don't specifically call them lizard people.
Like specifically, they mention reptiles, but then they correct themselves with Martians.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
So
yeah.
I really like what that says, because it reminds us that we're not talking about animals.
Mm-hmm.
Because lizard people is weird because it's lizard people. It's lizards and people.
You're like,
but here we're talking about literally not just another race, but another planetary species.
Yeah, that's part vampire, part reptile, part human.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that. We can, it's a chimera of vampire and people.
They're like so brutal too, and I think that's it's so interesting because there's just like I would like to learn more. Like I wish there were more about. I know you guys didn't like the little stories, but I loved that part of it. And I wish that there had been more of Jennifer's story, because like, it's so like humans and these lizard creatures, like on these planets with like a bridge between them, like it, and everything from how they like have babies to eat and drink. And it's just so different. Like,
well, let me make one fix, Cassie. Let's have it not be Jennifer's story. That's it.
Well, it's Chanine's story.
Well, no. I mean, like, let's have it not be the thing that the 13-year-old girl wrote on her typewriter.
Okay.
Let's have it not be an excerpt from Jennifer's story.
So I feel like it's just a reincarnation thing, though. So she's not really 13. She's really like...
No, but that's fine.
She's very old.
But when I'm reading it, it's just like, okay, well, now we're going to interrupt it so we can read her story.
That's fair. Yeah, you're like, I don't care what this 13-year-old has to say. Yeah.
So instead, if it's just another chapter, and we're piecing together what on earth this could mean. Why are we talking about these people?
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it comes into like, it didn't come into, clarity for me until later. I mean, it comes in quicker, like, who's who, but it was much later that I realized that it's Lauren making reckless decisions while her sister is at home knowing everything that's going to play out and everything that's going to happen, but she can't stop it. She has to like allow like free will.
She has to live it.
Yeah. She has
exactly like in the story.
Yes, exactly. Right. She has to allow it all to happen. And then like obviously in this reincarnation, she still, that's why Lauren gets invited in, is because she still has to give her the opportunity to make the choice.
That is a great moment.
Yeah.
To the come on in.
Yeah.
Oh no. And like, it's
it's
like, oh no. What are you doing?
I know. And
what
you're
are
like,
you doing?
No. Like, and then you realize like that she has to accept that it may end badly again, but she has to also offer it up, like as like these are the two choices yet again. What are you going to do? And then I guess like that's supposed to, because like again with the whole like leaving the door open, she still has like a very tenuous connection to her humanity that allows her to like realize what's happening again and make the different choice or make the different decision.
I think the ring helps too, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And the ring totally helps.
Oh, and here's the solution to all of it. Jump between the chapters based on where the ring is. So he gave her a ring. So she's wearing the ring. Now let's talk about another ring that looks the same in the past, because we already know it's going to be important.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
that's why it shouldn't have been a story. That's I don't, you know what? I'm raging for no reason, but that feels like what it really bothered me.
I feel like if they maybe hadn't presented it as something the 13-year-old was writing, or even if they had, but they had started with the gore and the baby being dumped into the lava.
Yeah, that would be far more interesting.
Becca might have been,
we would have been on board.
Yeah. That makes
Instead,
sense.
it's like, meanwhile, in the trade negotiations on the planet Naboo, it's like, okay, great. I don't fucking care.
Yeah, that's fair.
Let's have a lightsaber battle for fuck's sake.
I was just gonna say you're right now making me laugh because you're reminding me of another part of Scavenger Hunt when Carl, like realizes, like finds out like everything.
When it's all about Star Wars, yeah.
And Carl is like looking at Ceci, like who he's like been in love with or like obsessed with like the whole book, and then he's like and like in his head like he's thinking, God, she's a goddamn lizard. Like, how can I ever look at her the same again? She's a goddamn lizard. Like, that's everything you've been saying lately in my head. I'm like, this is some version of like they're a goddamn lizard.
Yeah, we didn't have that character in this book.
Yes.
The one being like, fucking vampires?
Yes. Right, exactly. Oh, and quick sidebar on Scavenger Hunt is you know how at the end like how Ceci basically like helps them save themselves from Davy, but she like whispers like almost in their heads, and she's like, right, in the church, I'll be back again, and you'll be grateful for me because you'll be old and I'll be young and beautiful and something. And I remember when I first read it, I was like, oh man, she's gonna appear again in like another book, or there's gonna be some kind of a sequel to this. And
I know I wanted a sequel.
Yeah, I don't think there ever was, right? Like
no, there wasn't.
She's never like mentioned again anywhere.
No,
but yeah, like like what we were saying.
There have been a few Pike books where we're just like, okay, why would you sequelize this other one so many times?
Yeah.
And not these.
Yeah.
Like, where is this sequel?
Yeah, I really, because like, that's interesting to me. I'm like, what would happen if she shows up again and they're all old? Like, and maybe they do want to be like young forever. And like, maybe there's a whole cocoon kind of situation that she coerces them into. Who knows? I don't know.
That's a very different story.
Yeah, it's a very different story. But yeah, I was curious to see like what would happen with that. But that's my little sidebar on Scavenger Hunt.
Well, it can go on Cassie's lists of sequels.
Yes. I like Cassie's idea for sequels. I'm on board.
Sequels and offshoots. Yeah. Okay, let's move into Thirst. My favorite section, because unlike last week where there was no sexuality, this is an adult fucking book.
Oh yeah.
And it only has slightly more sexuality.
And it's all gross.
But a lot more. Yeah.
This one was very rapey, which I forgot. I did not remember that from my childhood, honestly, like at all. I did not remember this being a rapey book. And that, like, I was reading it and I was just like, ooh, like, Jesus fucking, like, this is brutal, like, to read. Like, like, I wasn't expecting it and did not remember that.
Extremely rapey.
Yeah.
And
does anyone have quotes they want to share?
No, I wouldn't. No,
nope.
I do not.
One.
Okay,
but
you have one?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, go for it.
Go for it, Becca.
Okay, it's weird. FYI.
It's weird.
I think I know which one it is.
I hope you do. All right, Laura shifted her weight and leaned back. Terry fell on top of her. The front seat was terribly cramped, but that was all right. She knew how much he loved to do it in cars, especially rented ones. He once told her that the smell of all the other people who had driven the car, especially the different perfumes of the women, excited him. He had this fantasy that all these people were actually there watching them when they did it, which Lauren thought was pretty kinky.
Yeah, I had that one too.
Oh shit! What?
Oh my god!
And it upset me so much in pandemic times.
Oh,
just the idea of first really liking the idea of other people spilling their bodily fluids in
Oh,
this car you
so
rented.
Gross.
Second, the idea of being able to smell them. I mean, like, seriously, COVID broke me.
Oh my God.
That's disgusting, dude.
But yes, I had that one too, Becca. Very, very, very good. Very good.
That's okay. That was not the one that I was thinking. I was thinking,
What do you have?
Was
Danielle?
was yours the embryo one?
no, mine was the one
Lauren.
with Kathy up against the door with
Oh.
the splinters and the blood and the
Oh God.
when Gary comes to the door because she Terry tells her not to let Gary in, and he showed up, or like no, actually I think it was before Terry got to her. Like she knew not to let him in because he sounded weird or something, or like something weirded her out, and she just like wouldn't let him in. And he was like, "Let me in," and he was like laughing weird and being creepy. And instead, she masturbates like up against the door.
Oh yes,
and
yeah,
like
she's like rubbing her
Yes.
junk against the door
I think-
frame and gets splinters.
Yes,
I
and
think that went over my head.
oh my God,
Yeah,
and
I read that a few times and I couldn't quite figure out what was happening.
I will say, so they say how she's basically like humping the door,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and then she gets, so when she's telling the story, she's like, I looked down and the door was covered in blood and I had a bunch of splinters. So then they're like, she only had one splinter and she got her period. So that's why she was bleeding.
Right.
Like that's what they explained. But like overall, just what
Yeah.
the fuck are they going to do in the movie for this? Like what?
Oh, that's not
This
going to
is
be in
like-
the movie. Come on.
It's like the scene from The Wicker Man where that girl's twerking like against the door naked, except a lot more inappropriate and bloody. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
Hey, you are talking about a formative moment in cinema, Cassie.
Oh my
Britt
God.
Eklund's dance in The Wicker Man. That is.
That's
I introduced my boyfriend to that movie like last year for the very first time, and the whole time, like every 5 minutes, he's like, "Are they all naked? Is she naked?" Like I was like, "Everybody's naked! Everybody's naked everywhere!"
Oh, I love it.
And now we just randomly sing like "Fields of Barley."
Oh, yeah. I do the landlord's daughter song.
oh God.
From
I
her
don't-
left toe to
Yes.
her right toe.
Jesus
No. But
I don't have it highlighted, but the part that I had from this book was the gross. I know you and Becca and Cooper, you probably missed this part then, but when they're in the cave with Cratine and Janir,
Mm-hmm.
the sister of the goddess lady, he basically like he knocks her down to the floor and then gets on top of her, and he takes the egg of the creature that he just dumped into lava. He drinks some of the embryo liquid and then he pours some of it on her where it proceeds to like burn through her flesh.
I did read that part. I
as he's,
started
like-
skimming them toward the end.
No, yeah, and he like it talks about like I'm not gonna read it and I don't want to read it, but it talks about like the penetration, like and how she's like upset.
Well,
and,
isn't
like,
that the part where he has the snake dick?
yeah.
Yes, he has it says it comes out of him and
Yeah.
seeking her, like going toward, like
Yeah.
it's literal, like I didn't remember that from being 16, dude. I
Giant-
was reading
giant
that and I was
snake
like,
dick.
"Oh crap, what?" That was
Yeah.
brutal. Scene.
I just when I reread it too, I was like, oh God, I don't know that I must have blocked out how bad this was.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
Because when I was
or it just went over my head.
but I was reading it, I was
Well, it is far less obvious
yeah.
sexuality. Like
Mhm.
like Pike's other work, the teen books, the sexuality is very, and then we did it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
oh, look at her tits. Look
Yeah.
at how heavy. You know,
Yeah.
it's very surfacey.
Yeah.
This one, the sexuality is deeper and weird.
And rapey.
Weird.
So,
Yeah.
So
yeah.
weird. And like there's like one where he's like, "Suck my blood, drink me,
Yeah.
make me come
Yeah.
alive." And I was like,
yeah.
Well, I mean, come on. The inherent sexuality of vampires is
Yeah.
that's
fair. Yeah.
that's something that is not explored enough in popular vampire fiction. You know, like in Interview with the Vampire, because it's an adult book and an adult movie, they can really get into the perverse sexuality of the whole thing.
Right.
But like you look at Twilight, even Buffy didn't really get to the sexuality that is inherent in the fact that they are exchanging bodily fluids.
With a vampire.
Yeah, so you know it's sexual. It's all sexual. Well, let me read some sexy lines.
Oh boy.
I don't
oh,
know.
no.
I highlighted a lot of them. I have not reread them, so they may not be sexy. But well, let's see. Dr. Lauren Wagner was running on a treadmill. Her shiny dark brown hair bounced as she ran, and it was not the only thing that bounced.
Oh my God, I don't remember that.
I remember that.
I don't remember who the he is here, but he had
It's
heard
Terry,
bras were unnecessary in space, and he supposed if she was going to go there someday, she'd better get ready.
Yeah, that was the first time I think Terry meets her. He walks in on her where she's on the treadmill.
This is to Gary. Gary, I am a famous person. The whole world respects me. People in all 5 continents pray in all 5 continents. There are more than 5 continents. But people in all 5 continents pray for my well-being each night before they go to sleep. I am also a liberated woman. I would never say your penis is small. That's a long way to go for that.
That is a long way to go.
But I would have to say, as a medical professional, that I've seen cadavers that could probably get harder. You're saying I'm impotent? I'm just making an observation.
Dr. Byrne.
Yeah. It is a Dr. Byrne, yeah. Terry didn't mind. He liked aggressive women, or rather, horny women.
Mm-hmm.
That's going out on a limb there, saying he likes horny women. Okay.
But doesn't Lauren not sleep with him like right before she leaves or something?
Yeah, because she's afraid that she's going to get pregnant.
Yes,
she
yeah.
Use her birth control,
right? Because he wants to hook up with her, and she's just like. Doesn't she make some weird comment about what he can have in 2 years when she's back, and it almost sounds like she's offering him anal. It's like it just sounds like very like, but it's also like.
And I wanted to point out that you could probably
weird. Then why wouldn't
you could probably have anal sex before? I mean,
she's not going to get pregnant
recommend
from
anal
that.
sex before going on a space flight, but
yeah, it sounded very like, and also she like tosses it off like very casually. That you're like, is she saying what? What's happening here?
Well, let's go with Gary was something of an overgrown boy, and Lauren had reassured him that guys like that were only good for multiple orgasms and nothing else. All right. It was very hairy, Lorraine was saying. I didn't know what to do. I'd never seen a loaded cannon with ammunition like that.
Oh my God.
He tried to pin me, and I tried to squirm away. But Gary, I'm sorry. I guess I didn't try hard enough. He had me greased. Somehow he slipped inside. Do you forgive me?
I'm sorry. He had me greased.
Yeah.
That's the exact reaction he got in the book too, Cassie.
The reactions of the women laughing, and I was like, I was doubled over laughing so hard. I kept reading it. I said it out loud. I'm home alone. I'm just like, he had me greased, like dying laughing. Oh. Like my dogs are just looking at me like I'm stupid.
Oh my God.
Oh, Lorraine.
That's amazing. He had me greased.
What did he do with it, Lori? His pronunciation of her nickname made her quiver. With a rush of raw sensuality, the skin at the top of her thighs tingled. It made no sense. Nothing did. But she suddenly had a terrible itch in her crotch that she just had to scratch. That someone had to scratch.
I hate that he used the word crotch in this book.
I know. Crotch, there is nothing sexy about the word crotch.
Right.
No.
Or itch, really.
I'm talking about an itch down there. It's not sexy either. Like, that sounds like a commercial or something.
Do you
when
have
you have an
crotch?
itch in your crotch.
Yeah. It's like someone's going to be running through a field 2 seconds later.
Yes. She fell into his arms and her tongue went into his mouth, and neither of them had enough hands to do what they wanted to do. I actually love that line.
I'm just picturing like, oops, I tripped, and then my tongue's in your mouth. What?
I wish I had a third hand.
I keep falling over.
Not enough hands, guys.
Not enough hands.
Oh my God.
And my last thirst quote is, she sighed and began to unzip his pants. She reached inside. There wasn't a lot of room. She pinched the tip of his penis again and again. His pleasure was only outweighed by pain. He couldn't burst. It wasn't permitted. Not until you decide, lover. That was the proposition.
Oh,
I honestly have no idea what point of the book
I was gonna say
this is from.
I don't remember that one. I feel like
But the next line is, she continued, I've been wearing this silly ring, and then that's all I've got here.
Oh, I think this is toward the end, isn't it? Where she wants him to take the ring off, and they're like getting busy before he realizes she's evil.
Yes.
And I think that's so he finds her like near the lake or whatever, and I think that's what the cover is based off of. That.
Yes, he finds her. She's like crying, right? And
and that's why she's got like a blood tear because it's symbolic.
Yeah.
You seem so thrilled by the symbol.
I had like a head wave that went with it that you guys couldn't see. Symbolic.
Shall we move into Die Softly, where we talk about moralizing and problematic elements?
Yeah. There's a lot of problems here.
There are. Does anyone... I mean, I usually get the I'm in trouble because I'm reading the problematic stuff, but does anyone else want to read anything?
I don't have a quote, but one of the... toward the end of the books, the things that stood out is that we've spent this whole book with Lauren, like, she's like our protagonist, and then at the end, she literally bites off the dick of a small boy.
Yeah.
And that was it took me a second to put that together that was her that did that because but then I was just like, I went and they're like, oh, there's blood on her shirt or her dress or whatever. And then he's like flashes back to that little boy. And I was like, dude, like that's a really that's some SVU shit they've got going on in this. And I was like, not prepared.
No, I was impressed by that because that made it very clear there is nothing romantic about this vampire.
Yes, that's true.
And I like that. I'm not going to say I like the fact that she bit off a little boy's dick.
No,
I'm not saying that. I'm saying I like the brutality of the monster. She is a villain, and that's it.
Yeah,
and I think that's it. I think it takes a lot of guts for a writer to do that to their main character. Like that's not. I couldn't easily do that.
Our main character that we've spent all this time so invested in and so afraid of and her. Yeah, I mean, really, it's impressive. You're right.
Yeah, because it's devastating when like you think that her and Gary have escaped and they're on their way back, and you think like, okay, like they survived, but also like when you're reading it for the first time, you're like, man, there's a lot of pages left.
Yeah, there's several times where it's just like, okay, now it's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait,
nope.
Okay, now it's okay, right? Oh no, no. So I've got some problematic lines here. And as always, I apologize because I am reading legitimately what was in the text. The most problematic thing is the side character at the end that is just homophobic like crazy. Did your friend go and kill himself? Horseshit. Yes, he did. With those pills there. Man, this is the third one this year. These faggots and their drugs.
Yeah.
And that's the hotel guy. That's like such an unimportant character.
Yeah, like that didn't even need to be there.
I mean,
like,
that's a let's lift that out.
Yeah.
And this is all the hotel woman, not the hotel guy, because she also says you can have a look at your gay lover if it means so much to you. I mean, that's like overdone shit right there.
Yeah.
Here's the other line, but why did he do it? I keep coming back to that. He's insane, Lauren said. He's a monster, Jessica said. Maybe he just hates blacks, Gary said.
Yeah. That I did a physical double take when I read that line.
It's always surprising.
That was
this one, I spent 4 nights and 2 days writing it. That Negro boy I told you about, the one at the park who had that operation on his testicles, helped me write it.
Oh my God.
Uh-huh. And then there's this. I'm going to tell the press you're gay, she said. This is our hero. I already told them you're a slut. That's bullshit. I told walkers at CBS that I had you a dozen times in free fall from behind.
I remember that.
So that's gay. That's aggressive.
Yeah.
That's man. There's a lot there. But problematic. Cornerstone.
And that's the guy who also physically grabs her and kisses her.
Yes, that's Gary.
Without her permission. Yeah.
So that's our moralizing. Does anyone else have any iffy stuff?
No. The other one of mine was just what we talked about earlier with the why don't you send up smoke signals for Daniel, which like upon rereading that you're like, oh, that's a choice.
But what's nice about most of these problematic things is I feel if Pike was writing it today, it just wouldn't be there. It's not like it would be different. It's unimportant enough that it's just not there.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, let's move into Season of Passage, where we talk about the best and worst writing and Pikeisms. I've been very much enjoying starting with Pikeisms, so I'm going to do that with your permission here.
Mm-hmm.
We have Playboy magazine. The latest issue of Playboy, which was now 3 months old, is in somebody's locker. I think it's Gary's. I'm not sure.
Oh, I think it's Jim.
Is it Jim?
No, wait. I don't know. It's not Jim. I think it is Gary.
I think it's Gary's.
Yeah, because they find the coffee and the candy in Jim's, and then they find the Playboy in Gary's.
This is a recurring thing, and I find it fascinating. Lord of the Rings. It keeps coming up. And it's really interesting to me because at this point, it was not something that mainstream audiences were very familiar with. It was still a niche thing.
Yeah.
You know, this is before the Lord of the Rings trilogy was released, the movies. So, and what's great about this is I thought that the airlock thing was like Gandalf at the Mines of Moria. And then Jim said that it's like Gandalf at the Mines of Moria. And I love that. But again, because it's not a mainstream thing, we have Lauren saying, who? The wizard in Lord of the Rings.
I have this feeling that Pike is just a super big nerd, and his whole life he's made these references that people have been like, what, dude? Yeah. What are you talking about? And so he's like justified in like putting these in the books. And so when people read them, he's like, what do you mean you don't get this? It's in a freaking book, dude. Like, you know, that would just be so validating if I were him.
Totally. So we have skinny dipping at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
That's become a recurring thing here.
Oh, yeah. He loves skinny dipping.
We have like a Stephen King level of alcoholism. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not just a secondary character. It's Terry, who is a major alcoholic. And Terry knew there was nothing more pathetic than a frustrated novelist who had become a reporter to pay the bills, unless that reporter just happened to be an alcoholic. And the now more and more recurring thing of the writer in the story, which is not just a Stephen King trope anymore. But what we get from Pike with a writer character is we get these balloon tests of other stories. And there is nothing I want Pike to write more than a novel about a cockroach named Ricky who lives in a TV set and is in love with a teenage girl in his house. I mean, right?
Yeah.
Does she have, like, how teenage, though? Because if she's 13 again, I don't think I could sit through another book of that.
Well, he hasn't written it, so let's just say she's 18.
Okay. All right.
It's just, I mean, it sounds so fascinating. Okay, we've got a lot of gore here. So, Becca, this is for you. Hanging in space, only inches from her face, was a disembodied eye. A single eye that had been gouged from its socket. It trailed wisps of red muscle and nerves. It sported a pupil that was so dilated it could have been an open window into a hell of despair. Naturally, it was staring at her. It liked her. It floated a little closer to have a better look at her. Such a pretty girl, with such warm blood in her veins.
I love it. Igor is like my absolute favorite.
Oh, mine too, because it's not fixable.
You know, it terrifies the shit out of me too.
So much gore is fixable, but when eyes pop, that's not fixable.
That's such a memorable. I mean, I know we all mentioned it already tonight. Like the eyeball is like one of the things that you remember. For me, it's the eyeball. It's the terrible rape scene when Janir is dying. And also I think a lot about them finding Jennifer's fake dead body with her blonde hair like strewn about in the ashes.
And just the one arm,
and it was just because
that's good stuff.
Yeah.
They're so brutal. Like, this book is so, especially because this is the first time we're doing an adult one. So I think I had forgotten how much more adult his adult books were. And like that cave scene, like I legitimately like am going to remember that now.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It was such a brutal scene. Like if we were watching that in a movie, I'd be like raging because I'm like, I'm so tired of seeing women be treated like this. You know, like I couldn't. What's the one with Nicolas Cage? Mandy. I didn't watch that.
Mandy,
I started it and I was like, this is another revenge movie about a girl who gets brutally like brutalized. I'm not dealing with this, and I turned it off. And so
I will say that of all the revenge movies about a girl that gets brutalized, Mandy probably has the least girl getting brutalized portion.
Does it? Okay. Yeah. I've heard that. And I've heard that people people who know me well say, like, if you do end up watching it, you will probably like it.
And because most of it is Nicolas Cage being batshit.
Yeah. And I do like that. But like, just as a theme, like that's something that I'm just so tired of seeing in things.
Yeah.
And like the fact that this book is from the year that it is. And like, just, I don't know that they could have put something like that in a book right now written by a man that would have been written exactly the way that it was, because it's so brutal that I was like, and I know that it's like one of them's like a reptile, he's got a big snake dick, like whatever, but it's just like
he does have a big snake dick.
Yeah,
he does, but it just like the realism of like a man overpowering a woman, and then like after that he literally like spits on her and like kicks her, and I just it was a lot. Like this one is horrifying for so many reasons on so many levels, and it's just I don't think I was personally prepared going into it compared to like the teen books we've been reading that are like
it's very,
so much more tame.
It's like certain things you can become like desensitized to. Like I love John Wick movies where shit's just blowing up and people are just getting shot and like he's just.
But let's be clear, killing that dog may be the worst thing I've ever seen on TV.
Oh my God!
In a movie, ever.
I worked on the first John Wick, and
oh really?
Yeah, and when I got there, they had been shooting for a while. I stood in for Adrian Palicki, who
awesome.
was the one who she ends up dying in the movie. But she's like the one who gets paid to go after John Wick. And so when I got there, I didn't know like the plot and anything. I was like reading part of the script and I was like, wait, so he's like on a revenge tear because they kill his dog? And everyone just like turned and looked at me and I'm like, is that the wrong thing to say? And then like you see the movie and you're like, oh my God, that was so the wrong thing to say. Like, and I wasn't even saying it in a bad way because I'm a dog owner and I love dogs, but I was just like trying to understand, like, I'm like, wow, he's like killing a lot of people. Like what's happened? And then you realize that you're like, oh, well, okay. So his wife died and she left him the dog. Okay. Like, got it.
No, but even without that, I turned to my dog watching that movie and promised him that if someone ever kicked him, not even killed him, if someone ever kicked him, I would murder everybody.
Yeah. Their whole family, family would be gone. Like that's it.
No, everybody. I'm going berserker.
Dude, somebody looks at my dog the wrong way with the wrong tone of voice or eye. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing over there? You better watch out.
Exactly. Because dogs should be rewarded for not being people.
And I saw somebody on Twitter complain. They were like, oh, you guys, you don't like seeing bad things happen to women in movies, and like you don't like seeing bad things happen to animals, but you see guys die and get brutalized and it's fine. It's like, dude, like honestly, like just watching people like die on the screen. Obviously, if it's like a true story or something like that, it adds a different level. But just like in a movie where stuff's blowing up, that's not going to viscerally like affect me. But if I see somebody hurt a dog, that will. Like dogs are pure innocent.
It's because they don't understand.
Yeah. Like how could you hurt a dog?
No. Like people, even the worst horrors inflicted on people.
Yeah.
There's still a sense of understanding that this was done because of something, you know?
Yeah.
But the dog's never going to understand that.
No, the dog is just like, person hitting me?
Yeah.
Exactly.
No.
And that just breaks my heart. It's too much
so,
for me.
So to be clear to our audience, I'm fine with literally any human horror. Well, no, I'm not going to say that. No, not any. I've got more gore for us. She knew Carl's end had not come quickly or easily. Engraved in his face were hard lines of insanity. It was as if he had witnessed a horror so unimaginable and overwhelming that even death had been unable to erase the memory. Yes, Laurie, it was bad. It was so bad, it got to be good. Carl was happy now, though. He was very happy. His obscene grin was ample testament to the secret knowledge that had come to him at the expense of his wonderful experience. But what a small expense it was. A scratched throat, a little lost blood. It was nothing to cry about, not when you didn't have any eyes. Carl wanted her to know all about it. He was willing to explain. Yes, Laurie, come into my arms and I will nibble on your ear and whisper to you stories of love and hate, of a sweetness so fine that your blood will boil with lust. Come, Laurie, touch me, lick me, suck my wound, make me come alive.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah. This is fucking Hellraiser. This is Clive Barker horror here. And
it is, yeah.
I think that's why it's so impressive to come from Pike.
Yeah.
Is he doesn't go to that upsetting sexuality horror thing.
No, he doesn't.
And that's, it makes it so visceral, and it's upsetting horror, but it's not upsetting in the same way like we were just talking about with the rape is upsetting for this reason. The lustful horror is upsetting because you sort of are tempted by it, I think. You know, when they're explaining, you know, it's like I have such sights to show you. It's like, oh really?
I will agree with you, but then I will also say that on the more like problematic end of things, or I guess to strengthen that it's supposed to be like a darker lust, like they mention some really fucked up shit that they're like,
for sure,
into like. And Hazel's like, I would never want to do this to like an 8-year-old boy, and I'm just like, whoa.
No. I absolutely. No, it's more that it's uncomfortable because, like vampirism, it's about a lust for something that you don't have, that you may have if you are infected with this thing. You know, because if you become a vampire, you will lust for these things. I think.
Yeah.
But then we have the horrors. Right. Like I have the quote about the naked boy in the restaurant. The back of his head had been impaled several inches deep onto a meat hook. I'm a sucker for people being impaled on meat hooks. Nicely done, Pike. The force of the impalement had caused the hook to bend slightly, and that was a hook that was used to the weight of cows. His eyes were half open, the pupils rolled upward into a dead brain. He stared at Terry with 2 white marbles. Terry couldn't help but stare back. Michael's skin was ashen, even the boy's once brown hair seemed drained of color. His throat had been completely ripped open, yet there was little blood. A lump of dark pubic hair lay below his hanging feet. The hair appeared wet, almost as if it had been spat out. Terry forced himself to look closer. The boy had been castrated. Ugh. The wounds were rough and jagged. The job had not been accomplished with a knife. She had used her teeth.
This poor little boy.
Yeah. It's so wild that he sees all of that, and then still when he comes across her in the woods, and he like suddenly like, you know, I mean, I know it's like a mind control kind of thing, but like he like suddenly forgets like everything he just saw, and he's like, oh yeah, it's my fiance.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Which is, I don't know, I guess that's why like there's so many points in the book that you're like, God, Terry's so useless. Like, what? Terry, like, what are you doing, Terry?
Yeah,
that's why I think exactly. if they get someone like better to like someone interesting to play him, then maybe I won't be like so disgusted by him in the course of watching it.
I mean, honestly, I would just I don't know. I don't know how I would deal with the home stuff.
Yeah. But also like it's what weird. We were saying about how we want someone good to play Jim. Like, I don't know, like we were saying, maybe we get rid of some characters or conflate some stuff, and maybe Jim survives and comes back with them or something, you know, like, or maybe Jim is the one who doesn't go, like, but he has the ring.
Well, he's like the Gary Sinise. He wants to go, but he's grounded.
Yeah. Like something like that. But like he's gone to the Himalayas and he has all these things, and then he realizes later his part to play in the whole thing is to help Jennifer or some, I don't know. Like
because taking it a paternal route instead of, because it's not really a romantic part.
No.
because she spends almost the entire book away from him,
Mhm.
and when she's back, she's a vampire.
Right, exactly. And once, yeah.
So it doesn't need to be a romantic. Yeah, that'd be really interesting going that way. And again, my money's for Sam Neill.
Yeah.
Just hire Sam
Plus,
Neill for
Jim-
all the things.
Jim really likes Jennifer, and he's got like this fatherly, like grandfatherly
Mhm.
love for her, and he never goes into creep territory about how beautiful she is, like Terry
No,
does
very true.
repeatedly.
Yeah, let's get rid of Terry, right?
Yeah, if you
It's just awful.
put Jim and Jennifer together, like he is even like a professorial route
Mhm.
with that.
Yeah.
That could be very interesting.
Yeah. I would love that actually if that's the route that they go.
Okay, now we're going to get into best and worst writing. Does anyone have any best or worst writing? Because I've got bunches.
Nope.
Okay, I'm gonna give my one weird. Did she get fed up so quickly with men she dated because she was an egotistical feminist bitch who thought she was better than everyone who wore a penis full time? I read that only because of the full time part. Because that sounds like someone's packing. Or pegging, which I like both. To those playing the home game of the Pikecast, packing refers to wearing a prosthetic penis to have a penis on a day-to-day basis. Pegging is the act of wearing a dildo and harness to fuck a man in the ass.
And this ends our educational
Yes.
portion of the Pikecast.
The more you know.
I think so I found this very educational, this part of the podcast. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. I contain
This
multitudes.
is not the direction I thought we were going in. But I definitely appreciate it.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. You were
No.
gonna say something.
That's
Okay. Now, in my first, following up on that, my first line in the best category is, didn't he know a good thing when it crawled up his leg and chewed on his dick?
That is very good.
I really like this. It's funny, but when you live in the city, you think the whole world's crowded. It's only when you travel in the country or sail across the ocean that you realize the world is mostly deserted.
Yes, I love that, and I remember that.
Yeah. Because it really is a case of spheres of experience.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the city, it's this, and going into space is the ultimate expansion of the sphere of experience because there is almost nothing.
Yeah.
Even knowing that there's vampires on Mars, it's still almost nothing in the cosmic scheme of things.
Wow. And I said it earlier too. The quote that I like that sticks out is a little pinch and then sweet.
Yes.
Just because it's very descriptive in like just the right kind of way for when you're talking about vampires. Because like, yeah, this is what they're doing. You know, they're going to suck your blood and like, it's going to be terrifying and terrible. And you're going to die as a human and then come back and be immortal. So this description, obviously, you know, when you're human and you're Jennifer and a goddess, you know, that's not true, but it's such like a seductive line that it really it fits so well in it. And it's, you know, it's repeated more than once, but I like that line a lot. And that's one of the ones I think about a lot with this book.
It's like the line, bring the fire.
Yes. Bring the fire.
It's such an evocative line, and it's something that you don't know the reference until much later, but bring the fire just keeps coming up. And even not knowing the book at all, bring the fire has such an evocative feel in just day-to-day life. You know, come and bring the fire. I love that. And
fire, that's another thing that another similarity to Scavenger Hunt, the fire. Because they're afraid of it, the lizards in that one, and what's her name, Tracy, right, is like Ceci's like using her mind control to like tell her that to the candles, the fire, but then also like
preventing
her from thinking about it too hard so that Davy can't read her mind.
That's got such a great ending.
Yeah.
That book.
That he just disappears in the church. Yeah. That is a good book. That's like one of those ones that you like almost kind of forget about, and then you're like, no, that was a really good one.
Okay, let's see what I got here. Best of all, the room was empty. She loved empty rooms that didn't have corpses in them.
Same.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, gotta agree with that.
This line feels very Stephen King here. She wondered where the author had gotten his story. That's what she had been trying to ask Terry. Was it from outside? The real outside?
That's it.
That feels like macro space.
Yeah, that's really, to me. That's a good line.
His eyes, completely blank moments ago, were now windows into a place where the penalty of disobedience could clearly be seen.
Poetic.
That one doesn't hit me as well as it did on the page, I don't think. This one's rough. He kissed me. He said I was his bride. He kissed me till I was bleeding, and I liked it. I loved it, Lauren. I loved him sucking on me. I loved it dripping down my neck and over my ...
Were they talking about blood?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She entered the room and glanced at Gary. He looked the same, she thought, but Lorraine looked just like Kathy, and Lorraine was insane. And here's the friend being Hal. Laurie, I'm sure if we talk this over, we could arrive at an agreement that would be mutually beneficial. That's very Hal.
Yeah.
Damn NASA, why did they have to explore space? Couldn't they see it was dark out there? The bad things come out in the dark.
I agree with that as well.
I enjoy that, yeah. You're getting a bit melodramatic, aren't you? I suppose you're going to try to cast out the demon in me in the holy name of Jesus Christ. His smile disappeared and his tone hardened. It doesn't work that way. So there's the it's not, Jesus.
There's a line, and now I wish I had highlighted it, where when Lauren dies on the spacecraft.
I have it.
You do? The one where
I have the part that
it's like something.
Well, let me read it and you tell me if it's what you were thinking.
Yeah.
Lauren began to choke, to smother. She gasped upon air that no longer fed life into her blood. Her blood turned to ice, and the last breath of life left her body. The last breath of air left her body. Her heart stopped. Then Lauren Wagner died, but the agony did not cease.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that is exactly it. Yeah, where it's like the whole thing is, it's death is terrible, and yet it's going to get so much worse.
Yeah, it's not done being awful.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. But were vampires really as bad as he thought? Vampires were a tiny minority. No doubt they overreacted when people said something negative to them. They probably felt persecuted. But then internally he says, no, hold on. No one persecutes vampires. No one believes in them. It's a weird back and forth there. Again, Terry. It's just Terry. But perhaps it was that fear that brought the dream, for it was hideous. The cosmonaut's gouged eyes floated in a sea of red lava, searching for her on a molten shore. Only now they were beautiful blue eyes, like Jennifer's. They were searching for her to show her what was left of her sister's body. Ashes, Laurie, burnt ashes, and it's your fault.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, there's a lot of rough shit like that in here.
Yeah.
That is the end of my passages.
Those are some good passages.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So that brings us to the last act. And as someone who's listened to our show in the past, Danielle, you know I'm going to make you go first. And I want to know, out of 5 pikes, and again, you can put whatever you want on them, what is your rating?
I'm going to give 5.
5? Wow.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? I'll say 4.7.
Now, Danielle, if you wanted to jam an eyeball on there, it could make you up to 5, but not actually be 5 if you want it.
Only because then I feel like Whisper of Death is 5 for me and Remember Me is 5. So, and this is like not quite there, but I do love this. So I have to give a little room for my favorites.
So, sometimes you do have to do that other book math.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's other book math is what it is.
Becca, where are you at? I'm very curious.
I'm gonna give it 3.5 disembodied eyes hanging in space.
I just picture them rotating slowly.
As they are.
Yeah. 3.5. Okay. Cassie, how about you?
I'm going to give it 4 pikes and a tiny, gross, dripping fetus being held over a pool of lava. But the vampire fetus, he's not like a real baby. But he's a creature.
No, I get it.
But he's still a baby, and it's to prove that they're willing to make sacrifices just so the world knows. But yeah, I really like this one. There are obviously some problematic things that I had trouble with, but overall, this is such a solid like horror sci-fi book to me, and I don't think I appreciated it enough as a teen when I read it, because I remember thinking it was much slower than it is. I don't remember any of the gore. I don't remember so much of it. So I'm really glad we reread this, and I want more space vampires, really. Just vampires in space. That's all I need. Just give me that.
Yeah.
Space
vampires. We could, you know what? We should write some fan fiction about Kathy.
Kathy and Lorraine. Yes.
I want to know their story because it's fascinating and I don't understand.
What happens after? Like, I'm just so curious.
Yeah.
So,
well, I am going to go. I struggled here. I'm going to give it 4.5 pikes. And on that last half pike, there is there is a clod of wet pubic.
Oh my god!
Oh my fucking god!
It looked damp.
No.
Oh. Okay.
Wet pubic hair and fucking lava fetuses. What are we doing this episode?
This is the episode where some of our listeners say, like, you know what, that's enough.
They're out.
That's
enough.
enough.
They opt out. They're like, I'm not here for the adult books. Fuck this.
I draw the line here, not at talking about pegging, which is weirdly inappropriate for a podcast, but here.
Hey, the kids need to know.
They do. It's very important.
It's true.
Okay, Danielle. On the note of wet pubic hair, will you tell our listeners
where they can find my?
I'm sorry. I'm gonna set you up again. Hold on.
Oh my god, my headset fell off. I jerked back so fast.
How about here? Give me another go here. Danielle, thank you so much for joining our program. Will you tell our listeners where they can find more of your wonderful stuff online?
Oh, thank you. I thought we were going to tell them.
But I'm going to leave the other part in.
Okay,
so
yes,
just
you
so
should.
you know.
Well, I mean, I honestly have no direction of where you can find wet pubic hair, but
No. That's hold on. Let me be clear. I was not asking you to direct our listeners to that.
I just picture her at her computer furiously typing this in, trying to figure out where she can tell our listeners.
I mean, really, I imagine if you Google wet pubic hair, it's a veritable cornucopia of riches.
Yes, I mean, I don't think Pornhub isn't the place anymore. It's OnlyFans now, right? That's where everyone goes.
No,
I mean,
you can find it in both places. Yeah,
that's probably true.
But you gotta tip extra for wet pubic hair on OnlyFans.
Dry is standard, but wet costs more.
Dry is standard.
What is it? He had me greased.
Oh god, he had me greased. I'm sorry. He had me greased and I fell right in there. Oh god.
He had me greased and he slipped in. I think is the
he had me greased and I slipped in.
Yeah.
Oh boy. So yes, Pikecast audience. This is where you can find me. I'm mostly on Twitter at Elsep, ELLESEP, and I tweet a lot about baseball. I'm sorry in advance.
Sorry about what
but I am. And somebody told me the other day, they were like, oh, my friend always sees like your tweets in his feed because he's also a Mets fan. And I was like, oh, tell your friend I'm so sorry. It's like the only adequate response. I tweet about baseball. I'm very stream of consciousness on Twitter, and but I enjoy it. It's like I sort of wish I had it like years ago when I would just write these nonsensical statements in my journals instead, and now I do it for the world. So yeah, I freelance write for a lot of different places. My website is daniellesepp.com, where you can read any of those pieces. If you like. I also have videos on there because I do a lot of outreach for comprehensive sex education. We do not go over damp pubic hair or wet pubic hair, but maybe we should. Maybe there should be a video on that. We'll look into that. But I mostly.
Well, I mean, let's be clear. Swapping fluids should be involved in the education.
Yeah. So, most of my videos are about, because when I was 23, after one sexual partner, I was diagnosed with HPV, and it was terrifying and scary. And so I wrote a book and did all this outreach because I was like, well, if only one person feels less alone seeing this, because when I was going through it, I could only find WebMD being like, hey, you might be fine or you might die. Haha, good luck. Like that was.
The actual educational content of most HPV information is really, really dodgy.
Yes. It's like, that's essentially for years was those two extremes, when the reality lies very much in the middle. And so I thought like there's the whole world out there of people who are getting the wrong information about this. And also we should make people feel less alone, since it affects 3 out of 4 people with a cervix. So that's a lot of people. So I do that. And, something that I've been waiting to tweet, so actually I'm glad I could talk about here, is sometimes people message me because they've read my stuff or watched the videos, and they ask me a bunch of questions, and I will Zoom with them and talk, obviously privately, because sometimes they haven't talked to their friends or family, or they just want to talk to someone in like a non-medical kind of way, instead of just talking to like Planned Parenthood or their doctors or whatever. And so I've sort of tried to fill that little void of like, if you just want to talk to someone who's been through this situation and survived it and knows everything that goes along with it, like I'm here to chat and like hold your hand through the doctor's appointments. And so
that's really awesome.
Yeah, I've been trying to think of like a way to sort of make it a little more public that I do that. But then also, it feels like this dicey line of I'm not a medical professional, but like, I'm here to talk. I also do adult spelling bees, which
which is the most intriguing bio line ever.
You should all play in one, because I wanted to do a Christopher Pike themed one, honestly.
Oh yes. So, let's make that happen.
So we should do one, because like I was just dying to do something Christopher Pike related, and someone was like, do a Christopher Pike spelling bee, and I was like, at the time I was like, I want to, but I feel like it needs to be, so like it would make sense to do it with Pikecast people, because Christopher Pike, but maybe we could figure it out when it gets closer to like the Midnight Club airing, or something, like when there's more press about it, so we can be like, hey, like we're big Christopher Pike fans, like watch this spelling bee. All of the shows are on YouTube. Adult Spelling Bee is the YouTube channel, and we live stream on Facebook. We have I have some ones coming up end of August. So we'll do a Christopher Pike one for sure. And I think the next theme that I was going to do is middle school trauma for back to school.
Oh, wow. Well, that sounds awesome. Yeah, that's great.
And I think that's pretty much it for me.
Excellent. Becca, tell us where they can find you online.
I have a blog, which is astoldbybex.wordpress.com, where I mostly talk about books. And I have an Instagram, which is Read with Bex, which, again, books. And I have a Twitter and a TikTok. Both of them are As Told by Bex. And, again, yes, books.
So many books.
Oh, and just horror in general too. Yeah. Okay.
And Cassie, speaking of books, you have a new book.
Oh, yeah. So I do. I have a book coming out. It's a spooky children's book. It's called Rosie Paints with the Ghosts, and it comes out in October, and pre-orders should be open in September. And it's going to be available in my Etsy, which is shopletsgetgalactic.com, and you can buy art and other books. I have a tarot journal, a plant journal, coloring books, a lot of things that I've made and drawn. And this is something that I don't normally talk about when I do these plugs, but I'm also a member of Ladies of Horror Fiction, which is an organization that intends to bring up ladies writing horror fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And we just had our awards for last year announced. So if any of our listeners want to head over there and go look, you can go see what our award winners are. And there are some really great books to read.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
And yes, support Ladies of Horror Fiction, because a lot of men of horror fiction, let me rephrase that. A lot of men in the horror community, as well as the community at large, are just dicks.
They are sometimes.
And,
yeah. Oh, sorry, but no. Also, my Twitter is @ControlAltCassie, and the Ladies of Horror Fiction one is @LOHFiction. I forgot to say that in the rest of my stuff.
It's okay. I did hijack you to talk about how men are dicks.
I appreciate. I mean, I'm always here for that. So.
And sometimes they just disappoint the fuck out of you.
Yes, that's
true.
true.
It's true.
Anyway, as the man you tolerate here on the podcast, you can find me at CooperSBeckett.com, at CooperSBeckett on all of the social media stuff, and my art is at Beckett Arts on Instagram and all the things. All the stuff. Cassie, tell our listeners where they can find our show.
You can find us at the Pikecast on Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads. There's a group called Reading with the Pikecast, and you can read our books with us. And then we also have a Discord that's tied to our Patreon. So if you want to support us on there, we can add you to our Discord, and you can talk to us about the books and anything else, really. We just like talking to you.
Yeah, we do. We really just like talking to everybody.
Yeah, I have to join your Discord. I'm just not very educated on how that works, but I'm going to teach myself.
Well, it's okay. We can talk on Twitter.
Okay.
But if you want to learn, it's fun.
Yeah.
You can just shout into Discord. Just say anything. That's how it's just a bunch of different rooms, and you just talk, and people have to listen.
Yeah, they do.
Love that for me.
And I do want to shout out to Axel Carolyn, who is a director of at least an episode of The Midnight Club, and who also worked on Haunting of Bly Manor and American Horror Story. And we're shouting out because she's a fan. She has an I Read Christopher Pike shirt and wore it on the set of The Midnight Club. And that just makes us so very, very happy.
That's awesome.
Yes, that's so just to be clear, official Pikecast merch was on the set of an official Pike series thing. So that is one of the coolest things that's happened to us as like a podcast so far.
It is very, very damn cool. So
that is awesome.
Shout out.
Yes. Can I shout out BJ Colangelo for introducing me?
Yes. And we will also say thank you to BJ for introducing us, because this has been a delight.
Oh.
And we will have you back. I just looked at the schedule. The Immortal is our Halloween episode.
Ooh,
yes,
that's a good one.
You will be back for that one. You've already agreed.
I have.
So
yes.
Don't think you can get out of it.
Nope. I'm ready.
We're going to Greece for Halloween.
Yeah. Your homework for next time, everybody, is probably the coolest cover of all of Christopher Pikedom, The Road to Nowhere.
Oh,
my favorite book!
So good. Such a good one.
Woo! I'm so excited.
So, as you can see, we have at least one fan. I honestly don't remember if I've read The Road to Nowhere. Ooh. I know I owned it at one point. But that is your homework for next time. And until then, pleasant dreams, everybody. You survived the night, friends. You can peek out from under your covers and see the first blues of dawn out the window. Thanks for spending the night with the Pikecast, and we hope you'll join us again next time. Until then, Pikers, pleasant dreams. And Becca, I believe you're muted, just in case you didn't realize that.
Sorry.
There we go.
My allergies are acting up and I was sneezing.
Oh no.
Okay. Are you ready for me now?
Yeah. Yes, we are ready.
Okay. I wonder how long I was muted for. Like, I'm so
sort of laughing at all the appropriate times.
I do think I did that.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay. Whew. All right.
Okay, welcome back to the podcast. Now we're moving into Eternal. What the fuck? I always do it that way. I always do it that way.
Dude, her laugh is what got me. I'm sorry because it was just so.
Damn it, Danielle! And you want to come back on the podcast?
I ruin everything.